Hello and welcome! Today on Recap Session, we'll be covering Spore War Book 1 with a very special guest. Let's take a moment to introduce him. Now, obviously, I am a very big fan of your work, and because of you, I was able to discover a lot about Pathfinder lore that I didn't already know, and also you helped to teach my players, which is something that really helped me as a DM.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, the reason I started the channel was basically to help my players. I think my very first video, I was like, I want to find a video that I can send to my players that basically explains all the world of Pathfinder, and I couldn't find one. So yeah, I started the Mythkeeper channel. It was about 2 years ago, and it's been going pretty good. I'm pretty proud of it.
I'd say it's incredibly impressive, and it's a pleasure to have you, as I've not only enjoyed your regional deep dives, but also your Pathfinder 616 series with War for the Crown. I am a big fan of all your players. It's been very amusing to have that recap.
They're great. They are absolutely great. I got really lucky with this group. And yeah, Pathfinder 616, that's the real labor of love. The region deep dives, I consistently get the most views of anything I put out. But in my heart of hearts, the 616 series has been the most fun to put together, to cut and edit. So yeah, I'm super jazzed that you've been watching that and commenting, and really appreciative. And I'm really happy to be on this with you and kind of talk through Spore War, which is an AP I'm pretty excited about.
Oh, I am excited about it too, sir. The moment I saw Tree Razor, I instantly wanted to know more about him because he looked like a pterodactyl with kind of like an axe thing, and he wanted to chop down, I guess, the Verduran forest. I kept thinking he was trying to chop down the Verduran, but he's actually in the Tanglebriar with the Keonan elves. I always imagined him being there if he wanted to destroy forests. At least that's where my headcanon put him first.
I've got a couple of videos, I think, where I talk a little bit about Tree Razor. I think maybe in my demon video, maybe I talk about him in my elf video. But I do have a Keonan deep dive coming out. I want to say it hits the, I want to say it hits the club channel in 4 weeks, on the main channel in 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he's a cool character. I like the Sith Facade connection. Um, and I just like the fact that Pathfinder just advances the world every so often. So he's been like the Keonan Tanglebriar conflict has been kind of there for however long Pathfinder's been around now, almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that we're gonna get maybe some kind of resolution there.
I'm
Something
hoping.
like world wound closing, but with I don't know, something that advances the story in any case. So that's really cool.
My personal thoughts on the matter is, since Tree Razor has a divine spark, and because of the events of Triumph of the Tusk, I'm worried that Tarbafon is going to slip in at the last moment and just kind of go like, ah, you're not using this? Well, I need this to become a god now. Bye.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't be surprised if something like that does happen. It feels like part of the trick with Pathfinder is every time you close a door, you open another one,
Mm-hmm.
which is good if you want to keep the story going kind of indefinitely. Also, if you've been enjoying my Pathfinder 616 series, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will say that there is there is some connection between the Keonan elves and what happens in that adventure that I'm sure we won't get to for months because of how long it takes for those to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited, um, uh, because I think that uh, if I were to run this game, especially if I were to run it with some of the same players or even the same play group, I'd easily be able to tie it into the stuff that I was doing in War for the Crown, which is super cool.
Ah, nice. I especially enjoyed the elements from Wardens of Wildwood that you tied in, and I love the
Mm.
fact that Valinar the Green is going like, yeah, yeah, I get it, I know it, I'm old. Thanks, Demi. In our game, he did the same thing. We shared one
I
brain
like
cell that
both
day, sir.
characters. Anytime I can do an old man voice in a game. Oh man, him and I'm spacing on the name of the character, but the like 90-year-old man that you meet in the first season of War for the Crown.
Hmm.
They're hysterical. Yeah,
It always falls back to some tropes are always the most amusing. So
yeah. Slightly befuddled old man always works.
mm-mm. So let's talk a little bit about your fifth video, the Ancestry Guide to Elves. That's like 2 years old now, right?
Yeah, yeah. That was one of my first videos. The very first video that I made was just the overall Pathfinder history. I did choose or choosing an adventure path, and then I was like, well, I better do ancestries next. And so I think elves may have been my third video ever on the channel. So it's very old. I,
Hmm.
I don't know if it totally holds up. I must admit I haven't watched it in a hot minute, but
Well, I have
it was
watched it
cool.
again recently, and it still holds up. It's just that the terminology has changed.
Mm, yes, yes, it's true. That is a video that I could absolutely remaster. I don't even know if at the time if you've watched it recently, you'll know. I don't know if did they call them the Iudine elves at that time? Or was that still the probably that was still back in the original source material. Um, I bet some stuff has stayed the same, but yeah, I'm sure a fair bit has changed. I also spent a lot of time in that video, if I remember right, talking about Tolkien and
Oh yes,
elven sort of mythology in general, and I did that for all of my ancestry guides. I did that for dwarves and orcs as well, because I mean this all this D&D Pathfinder stuff, it's rooted in Tolkien. So I feel like you got to know that stuff to like figure out, you know, how they function in the game, right?
absolutely. And Tolkien's work is derived in almost all the basic fantasies. It's one of the reasons we have D&D and Pathfinder and a lot of TTRPGs or a lot of RPGs in general. It helped the basic races, especially elves among the first of them. And hobbits, well, hobbits changed a lot more than orcs and elves have. Orcs and elves have stayed the same in almost everything. Same for dwarves.
I think actually orcs are the ones that have changed the most. I feel like elves and dwarves are pretty consistent. Elves sometimes get weird though. Elves people do weird things with elves. Just I think you get like these kind of sort of fey woodland elves sometimes, and you get kind of these haughty high elves, and sometimes you get something that's really out of left field, like a night elf from World of Warcraft, which is like it's got some of this stuff that's familiar and some stuff that's quite different. Dwarves are basically completely consistent in every TTRPG, every video game. Like a dwarf, they all sound Scottish as well, which is great. But orcs have changed a lot. Orcs have definitely changed a lot. Like I think um, if you think of Tolkien as being the source for all of that stuff, definitely they're like corrupted, grotesque villains, and I feel like I think probably Warcraft should get a lot of credit here for giving us the kind of more noble orc concept of like, this misunderstood kind of tribal society that has been cast as the villains for a very long time by humanity. I think that's more and more the version of orcs that we see in a lot of RPGs.
Yeah, especially in Triumph of the Tusk. It was definitely pulling on some of those Warcraft vibes. We were talking about that while prepping the adventure. You did mention that sometimes elves get weird. Now, Pathfinder elves are from another planet, right? They're from Castrovel, and not just from
Yeah,
Castrovel like Lashunta and the Formians, but they were on their own isolated island continent for all of their existence, really. So they never got involved in that conflict between the Lashunta and the Formians.
yeah, I like to think, and there's always, I mean, they've been living on Castrovel for a very long time, so I like to think that they have their little island nation, and they probably, they're very good at magic, and they're very sneaky, and so I would imagine that they're pretty aware of what's happening on the continent. But they're just, they've got their own thing going on, and so they don't need to, like fight for land or anything. And their desire to explore was more out of the cosmos, because once they figured out how to build the way gates, they could go anywhere. And I'm sure that Galarian is not the only planet that at some point the elves popped up in.
Well,
If
that's
we want to go Darkfindery, I'm sure there's many more elves out there in the world that have got different cultures and different things. And that's pretty cool.
oh yes, and they've also got different gates, which is weird because at the end of your ancestry video, you mentioned that the inventor of the gates just kind of stepped into one and said it kind of pieced out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nobody knows what happened to him. I, I think one of the fun things in general about Pathfinder is they leave a lot of like, um, mysteries, so that different playgroups can pick up those threads and decide what they want to do. So if you ever want to use Handleron the Sculptor, he's the guy that created the Elf Gates, in your own game, you can, and you can just decide, he went to this particular world, he went to another plane, whatever, but now he's back and he's going to do some stuff. Or what happened to Nex? Nobody knows. What happened to the Golgam? Nobody knows. There's so many of these little unanswered mysteries, um, and I think one of my worries, as more years pass and as Paizo fills in more and more of the world, is that we'll start to lose some of the mystery because everything will get filled in, right? So I think you were mentioning that you suspect that Tree Razor's spark of divinity might get consumed by Tar-Baphon. I think they have to keep doing that, right? They have to, when they explain something, they have to like reveal another mystery so that the world still feels like, every new
Consistent.
player that comes in gets to explore something new, right?
Hmm. And it's part of the things that I love about Pathfinder is that we can get on some themes like that. And with the Whispering Tyrant, and he has an entire history in and of himself. So I was surprised to see him at the beginning of Spore War because Queen Talandria and he have a bit of a history. She hates his guts. I'm kind of surprised Last Wall fell at all. And the people from Last Wall, they're not angry at her for suggesting the Incarthan alliance now of all times. And they're going like, yeah, oh, thank you. Well, it was a nice country we had, but at least we're doing something about it now.
Yeah, I mean, have you had a chance to play through Tyrant's Grasp by any chance, or are you fairly familiar with the all sort of Last Wall Falls?
I am not. I remember the book, and my player is getting the book, wanting to do like last wall feats and stuff with shields, and I'm going like, okay, what's last wall? Did I look it up? Gravelands. The heck is Gravelands? What is? That's not the same thing. Oh,
Yeah, it's basically a nuclear weapon that he uses. That's
oh
he
God.
basically destroys Vigil with this like, yeah. He he does like one trial explosion and then he destroys Vigil. It's this thing called the Radiant Fire. It's a wild thing to put in an adventure path. And So yeah, the like I think the reason that Last Wall fell is because it was so sudden and dramatic. And ultimately, the what Arbathon wanted is to actually unleash the Radiant Fire in Absalom, because Tarbathon's other thing is that he's got a bee in his bonnet about Aradin, because Aradin killed him the first time round, and then dispatched Erasmi to get him the second time, and so on and so forth, and now Aradin's gone, and so he's got nowhere to channel his rage, and so he's like, I'm going to destroy Absalom. But then obviously the way that you win, so to speak, in Tyrant's Grasp is you save Absalom, which is a bit of a Pyrrhic victory because you've also at the same time lost, um, you've lost Last Wall. But I think it's cool every so often that they do that in Pathfinder, where you have these adventure paths that tell a story. At the end of it, it feels like it's got a nice resolution, but there's still a sense of there was some significant loss. I think Iron Fang Invasion is like that as well, where by the end of it, the nation of Altbrack has emerged, who are kind of the villains of the of the adventure. So I think I'm not sure I can think of any sort of major 2E adventures that have like the villains win, so to speak. But there's definitely a few 1E1, and of course the best example of that is Hell's Vengeance, where you actually play as the villains.
Ah, nice. I would argue also that Bloodlords you kind of play as the villains.
Oh yes, yes, of course, yes. Bloodlords is so high on my to play list. Yes, I that is definitely part of me really wants to take a left turn after War for the Crown and go for Bloodlords. Plus,
Mm.
as you could probably tell from War, I am a sucker for politics. So,
Oh, yes.
uh, politics with undead, yeah, sign me up.
I can tell you from experience and having run it for over 2 years that the first episode we did with Session Zero and the Great Factions, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And everyone fit into their role so perfectly. They loved that certain factions hated others but liked others, but didn't get along with others, but at the same time, they still worked together. It made them feel more diverse as characters. It really helped flesh them out, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why the political stuff is always super fun. My other sort of all time favorite adventure that I've ever played is Skull and Shackles. And Skull and Shackles is exactly the same thing. There's about uh, first of all, each kind of pirate ship represents its own individual faction, and you kind of build these relationships with each of the different captains. But also, the captains fall into these kind of broad factions. So you have the Free Captains Council, you have the Rogue Pirates. There's a couple other groups as well, and sort of the impending overarching conflict is that eventually the Chelish Armada is coming to wipe them all, and so the players have to sort of build this haphazard alliance between the captains. It's pretty cool.
Does Abigail not like pirate romances? Did she just suddenly decide she wanted the islands back?
I'm not just her, but all the Chelish kings have felt that that land is rightly theirs, going as far back as uh, you know uh, uh, aspects the even tongued, right? There was a period that the Shackles Islands were colonized by Taldan settlers, and after the Cheliax Taldor split,
Mm-hmm.
the islands kind of were just like, we're independent pirates now, and but the Chelish have always considered it to be their land. It's They consider it to be sort of old time, Western Taldor, and so therefore it belonged to them. And they established Sargava, of course, which then became independent and then became Vidrian. Sargava, if you've watched my region deep dives, you'll know that Sargava, Vidrian, and the whole Western Mwangi region is like some of my favorite stuff in
Oh,
Pathfinder in general.
oh yes. You commissioned that map after all, specifically for that episode, didn't you? The special one that hadn't existed yet.
I have commissioned a couple of maps that I've commissioned a map of Vudra. I should first call out Rob McCaleb. Rob McCaleb is sort of Pathfinder's semi-official, Paizo semi-official cartographer. There are other cartographers that have done work, but my favorite regional maps have always been Rob's. And so there's a couple of maps um, that Rob has done that appear in the source material. One of which is a Vudra map, and I think that appeared in Agents of Edgewatch, and the Tian Xia map as well, and obviously the world map. And so on occasion, I've reached out to Rob and said, "Hey, is it possible to get a more detailed render of map X or map Y?" And so I've done a Vudra one, I've done a Tian Xia one, I've got one you haven't seen yet
Oh,
that I think you'll see next week, actually.
on the Patreon.
If I remember my, yes, you'll see next week on the Patreon. I've got a map that takes Garand all the way down to about the midway point because I'm going to be doing, you're the first to know this, I'm doing a region deep dive on Holomog, which is the big nation just south. In fact, you know about Holomog if you've run Bloodlords because that
Yes,
gets
yes.
yeah. So I've got a new map coming up, which takes the entire Garand even further south. But yeah, that's been that getting that support from Rob has been a real pleasure, and it's really helped me put some of my region deep dives together. Yeah, it's been good.
I absolutely love it, and I do appreciate all the time that you put into it. It only helps us. It really helps us to get a better grasp on the campaign setting, because goddamn, there's too much for one person to just look at and go, yeah, um, that place is fascist devil empire. This place is I bless the rains down in Africa. That place is it's fucking cold. Yeah, that's how I remember things.
No, it's true. It's massive. It's massive, and I think the living world thing is really has been Paizo's greatest strength in the release of Pathfinder. Right? They've created a world that feels alive and rich, and every writer that comes in puts their own little stamp on it. And every time somebody is like, okay, now I got to do the Thuvia, deep dive for them, and I'm going to add a little bit. And every AP that comes out adds more. And so, pretty much what I do on the channel is just I try to go through all the sources, and I just try to collate information so that really old 1E sources, really current 2E sources, they're all kind of being collapsed together in some kind of, here's literally everything you need to know about this place. But the truth is, if you're running a game, especially for new players, the high level sort of bullet lines like Infernal Empire or I bless the rains down in Africa is
Yes,
probably all
strength
you
of
need to get
thousands.
started.
Andrew Andrew White and Sen have done some phenomenal writing within 2E, and I really appreciate them for that, because some of their work is what really pushed me to start doing this stuff on the channel, where I started to look at things and go like, huh, this doesn't make sense. Why did this happen? Um, oh no, I have to watch more videos. So, what I would like to do with some time remaining for your introduction before we actually get into the adventure, I'm sorry to keep picking your brain, but this is very, very interesting stuff. Why haven't you done more videos about your own characters in the campaigns that you've played in? You mentioned a dwarf that you played once and gave some details on
Oh,
him.
Gungnir, son of Fafnir, what a legend! Yeah, that was I ran I played Gungnir in my friend's Giant Slayer game, and I I love playing a character where I can just be an accent the entire time because I'm a ham like that. So I
Ah,
just did Scottish, sure. And he was also a bard, so I used to sing in accent as well, which I'm not going to do here.
no, that's fine. I'm not going to force you to
um,
perform, but
but
that's amazing.
yeah, that was a super super fun game. One of my best experiences as a player, and the other cool thing about that game was uh, the kind of my character's overarching meta plot was that I was looking for my daughter, Sif, who had been kidnapped by one of the fire giants, or maybe I think it was one of the fire giants initially, but she ended up being held by Volstis, who's like the big bad guy, he's like a storm giant. And by the time I caught up with her, no, sorry, it's been a minute since I played this campaign. She was being held by Skirk Cutler. Each episode of Giant Slayer is like uh, a different kind of giant, right? So it's like hill giants initially, and then it goes fire
Mm-hmm.
giants, and then frost giants, and then so on and so forth. And so I think Skirkatla is like a frost giant grave knight.
Oh dear
So I finally
God.
caught up with my daughter, and then I got killed by Skirkatla. And so I don't know how different GMs sort of manage player death differently, but I spoke to my GM about it, and he was like, Gunnier's got this like big personality, and it's going to be really hard to like replace him. So if we want to like finagle something for Gungnir to survive these events, and I said, you know what, we've finally caught up with Sif. I think what I'd like to do is to have the party meet Sif, and then play Sif from here on out. And so that's what we did. So I actually played two characters. I played Gungnir and then I played Sif. Um, but yeah, the reason I don't talk about my character so much is the stuff that people have really responded to on the channel is basically just as like, here's the lore, here's what you need to know. I think my channel basically functions as educational material for GMs.
Hmm.
And so, like 616 gets maybe a third as many views as the lore content. I love to make it, but it's not it's not my bread and butter. It's the truth. I
No,
hope
I
more
can
people discover
understand.
it and enjoy it. But yeah,
I hope so as well. And maybe for that third year special, you could do maybe a an online sort of game or whatnot. I do know some DMs I can put you in contact with.
yeah, I could. I definitely want to push myself in year three to do more different kinds of content. Also, because frankly, I mean, some of my old content I think I want to remaster, like I did with the overall Inner Sea history video. I want to maybe relook at Varisia and Taldor. But I'm going to close pretty quickly on all the regions available. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
by end of year three, I will have done pretty much a region deep dive for every region that exists in the game. So doing Pathfinder 616 every other week has also served to sort of um, give me some breathing room in terms of the lore content, which I'm going to exhaust eventually. And I am interested in finding some other kind of format stuff to do. So yeah, maybe some kind of live play stuff. Um, Obviously, the game that I run is an in-person game. I actually don't have that much experience running games virtually. I'm an old. I look like I'm 30, but I'm much older.
I'm in the same boat
And
as you, sir.
it's my hair. It keeps me youthful. And so I'm definitely like a physical table guy. So I think if I do some like online play stuff, I probably want to do it as a player, not as a GM, only because the like figuring out how to organize Foundry and figuring the tech stuff, I think, is probably a chunk of work that I'm
Oh, it
sure you
is.
spent a lot of time working on. Yeah.
I've spent the last 4 years and I've learned everything from coding to technical support. And I gotta say, it is a hassle. So I don't blame you at all. But it is good to know that you wish to be a player in an online game. Hopefully, we can make that happen. We should talk about that more sometime.
Let's do it. Let's we'll chat on the Discord.
Oh, yes. Yep, yep. So, Iron Bear, are you good, sir?
You tell me.
You are perfect,
Oh yeah.
sir. And in good timing, too, because we just finished the introduction. Iron, please tell the people who you are.
I am an angry bear and I will throw Discord into the sun. I am Iron Bear Jones. I am a aspiring TTRPG writer, forever DM. I play a lot of systems, but Pathfinder is kind of like my main squeeze, as it were. Um, Not much more to me than that, I guess.
Well, your role in this segment is always concrete, and you've yet to be incorrect once about the module or the lore. So it's been very helpful to have you on when you're willing to come on the show. So thank you to both of you. And Mythkeeper, your content is legendary. Please, please continue. Maybe you might even like doing some Starfinder stuff.
Oh yes, that also has definitely been on my list of things to tackle. Um, I I don't know exactly when. I don't know. Maybe when I get through all the region deep dives, I'll start doing some Starfinder content. But I have run some Starfinder. Uh, Again, I love the world and I love what they've done in terms of like fitting the traditional sort of lore to kind of the space setting. Yeah, who knows?
Unfortunately, Nictorak, who is going to be a player in this AP, has opted not to come along, but he is here in spirit. Nictorak is a professional TTT RPG editor who works with Jewel of the Indigo Isle and Rolls for Combat. So, while he's working on all those new Battle Zoo supplements that have come out this month, about 3 of them, we may even be setting up some Jewel of the Indigo Isle live play, so who knows? Who knows? We'll maybe get to see some of that soon. I am Bramblebear. I've been reviewing modules for about a year now on the official forums to determine the extra amount of DM work required and if they are well written. I tend to be brutally honest in my reviews, even if it means being critical of Paizo sometimes, who claim they want what's best for DMs and players. I'm hoping this AP is a return to form and quality we've come to expect of Paizo. We've noticed some very interesting things as we've transitioned over from the OGL to the ORC, so hopefully things are a bit better this time. I gotta say, I noticed some very fun things in this, so I'm hopeful. But some precautions. As we've been warned by Mike Moreland, we may not say excerpts or quote verbatim from the human readable document, but we can summarize. Everything else is fair game and can be shown as though this were a live play. But the text cannot be spoken from the module. I've also taken some extra precautions that my fellow YouTubers use at this time. But let's talk about the elves. This is a very special AP for them. Their neighbor to the south, I believe it is, and his dam pollution that are messing up the forest. He's been there for quite a while now. And Tree Raiser is a god, yes? Or is he a godling?
Like a godling, I would say. I would say there are various levels of divinity, and he is like a nascent demon lord. He's on his way to true divinity.
That's a nice way to say newbie.
Yeah, pretty much. He's a baby god.
All right, so a thing that's very important to establish is that elves are not xenophobic, but they are quite paranoid about anyone who is a non-elf being a cultist of Tree Raiser. Now, why is that? Why would they throw themselves into such severe isolationism that everyone else views them as xenophobic when in fact they're just trying to avoid the cult of Tree Raiser? I mean, how destructive are Tree Raiser's cults? Because every time I hear of a cult, I hear of Cult of the Devourer, cults that have to do with Norgerber and things like that. I really haven't heard of Tree Raiser cult before.
Well, I would imagine that Tree Raiser's cult is because again he's a nascent demon lord. I would imagine that they're probably operating in and around the Tanglebriar, whereas the cults of Norgorber, as a god that's quite a bit more significant, are scattered throughout Galarian and probably beyond Galarian at this point, even though he's a Galarian native originally. So I think it's a smaller scale cult, but it's particularly near and dear to the elves because that's where Tree Razor has been doing his business, and the reason that the elves came back, in fact, is because of Tree Razor, right? So Tree Razor discovered one the Ayadara and was like, "Hey, I can use this to gain access to the Severian Stone and get a bunch of power," and the elves are kind of protecting that. That's the reason that the elves actually returned to Galarian was because Tree Razor kind of uncovered their lost cities.
So does that mean Tree Raiser and the elves as a whole of a nation are on par of power with each other, since they kind of like just fought him back but weren't able to destroy him? Like the elves united are definitely Tree Raiser's strength, and that's why they need allies to defeat him?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of looking at it. I think exterminating even a godling is quite difficult, and so what the elven nation managed to do is confine him to the swamps in the south of Keonan, but they couldn't remove him entirely. They couldn't eradicate his cults, and they certainly couldn't destroy him. And so I think a lot of this is left to GM discretion, right? But um, my personal take on this is that you can ascribe the motivations that you want to to your version of Galarian that you run with your play group, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the way that I would think of this is the elves are quite proud as a people. Sorry, that's a motorbike going by.
Oh, that's I'm used to it from the videos, sir. It's just like random hawk or thing like that, and I'm going like, his editor didn't
I
cut that. What the heck?
I live in downtown San Francisco, and
Yeah.
there's tons of traffic here, and editing my videos to pull out car noises is so difficult. Anyway, my take is that elves are quite proud as a people, and
Yes.
they don't want it known that they can't defeat Tree Raiser, and that's also at play here.
So they are arrogant. They are arrogant.
They want people to think, no, that we can handle this, but they can't.
So it really sucks for Tree Raiser, right? I mean, he was banished by his father, and then he was banished by the elves. That's a double banish.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose. I mean, if you think about what a demon is, it's hard to be totally sympathetic towards Tree Raiser or any of the demon lords unless they show some kind of redemptive quality, right? Unless they're
Like
going to do
Nocticula?
exactly, unless they're going to pull a Nocticula turn. I mean, these are souls that have evolved to be, power hungry, hedonistic, self-serving creatures. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's had a rough go of it, but he's a bad guy.
Let's talk a little bit about the inspiration for Tree Raiser. He came from a period of American history and time that was basically focused on pollution, nuclear activity with the Cold War on Russia and everything, just fresh out of that. Do you see anything like Godzilla inspired in the creature itself, and how elves like run in panic when they see him or things like that? Or am I drawing the wrong parallel here for the theme of a creature born of pollution and you know
I think you're drawing exactly the right parallel, and you can totally run Tree Razor as like a kaiju class creature that is a destructive force that the elves have tried to contain. Yeah.
Tree Raiser is fleeing the Idara. We must flee. So we just had an AP from Belkson where the orcs were incredibly accepting of outsiders to help contribute to their civil war and modernization. And I use the word contribute because we were never named heroes in Triumph of the Tusk. Do you think the elves of Keonan are gonna follow suit, or are they gonna fall short of Ardax and friends?
Are they going to name the heroes of this AP heroes? Is that the question?
I believe that is what I'm getting at, yes. Are the elves going to basically follow suit of the orcs, or are they going to go in the traditional Pathfinder sense and say, like, you're the heroes of Keonan. Good on you for helping us. Rather than
Oh
Ardax at the
no.
end going like, you helped. You can be my advisor.
I mean, I think you know if you look back at the concluded APs, the sort of the canon record of what actually happened is always left a bit obscured because
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is that every single play group can run the adventure however they want, and that's the canon story for that play group, right? So uh, I would say sort of similarly by the end of this, I'm sure that there's some advisory in the AP around sort of how it concludes, but I think it's up to us as GMs to, I don't know, Iron Bear, how you feel about this, but to decide like, will Queen Talandia embrace the heroes? I also think it materially makes a difference if your heroes are all elves or not, right? Like
Yeah.
if you ran this game and every single player in your play group plays an elf, then hell yeah, Talandia is going to champion them as the heroes of Elvendom. But then it's very different if, for example, one of your players is a Droomish Calistocrat and another player is his Blackjack mercenary bodyguard, and they're like, "We're here because you guys can't sort yourselves out," and they're bringing a lot of Droomish arrogance to the. They might end up with a different story, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Iron? Oh no.
I think we might have lost Iron on audio again.
Oh
Whoops,
no.
sorry. Nope,
That's
I hit the wrong button. No, we're fine.
that's oh good. Good, good, good. So, Ardax versus Queen Talandria. Oh, who's gonna wear it better?
I think the comparison is kind of an indicator of the difference in culture between the orcs and the elves. I feel like the orcs, as a general rule, are very power driven, socially and otherwise. So calling someone a hero is feeding power to somebody, and it kind of feels like that's what's the word I'm looking for? It it feels like it's counter to how orcs generally behave.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the elves are, I mean, the Shining Kingdoms in general just generally feels like, hey, these guys helped out a lot and we might not be here if it weren't for them. So hero seems like an appropriate term.
Man, that was brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, me too. I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. I think Talandia will uh, embrace the heroes of this adventure by the end of it.
Oh, cool, cool. The way she embraces her subjects whenever she pops into their mind with that special artifact crown and goes, "Give me control." I want to see the
Uh,
heroes.
slight spoiler for War for the Crown. I That artifact totally comes into play in my adventure later, and it's in a really fun way. And yeah, it's wild. It's a wild ability that she can scry on any of her subjects at any time. Um, I love it. I think it's great.
But
I
can she
think that's
control them?
very intrusive.
Can she control them though?
No, I don't know. I think she can speak to them telepathically
Mm.
and sort of suggest things to them and scry on them and see what they're up to. But I don't think she can. Well, I suppose technically, you, I don't totally know. I apologize here. I don't totally know what the two rules are on scrying, but at least in 1E, you could cast certain spells through a scrying. I think that had a certain percent chance of failure. So I guess
Mm-hmm.
theoretically, as she is a caster, you could cast a dominate person through the scry. Um, Although the flip side is the way that the crown works is anyone she can only scry on people that recognize her as their sovereign.
Yes.
So would she need to dominate someone if they recognize her as, or would she just need to tell them?
She'd probably just need to tell them. Like her cousin, who is pretty much her proxy throughout the entire adventure. I read proxy as in she's scrying through her.
Oh yeah, probably, yeah, like telling her what to say and whatnot. Yeah.
Mm. And that fits all into the Incarthan alliance that's going to happen. And we all know how successful EA is, right?
I'm
So
very excited for this adventure to open with politics and the Incarthan alliance. I think that's very cool.
I'm a little hesitant because when I saw 14 influence up from the normal 8, I was counting my lucky stars in Triumph when we got like 4 or 5, and I was like, oh, thank God.
I had
It's a
the
higher
same
level.
reaction. I had the same reaction, but I kind of came around by the end of it.
Okay. So, one more thing before we get truly started, and I apologize for this, I want to make it abundantly clear. Elves are not accepting of their own unless they are raised by other elves? Can they never reconnect with their society if they are raised by humans?
No, I think I wouldn't say that they're not accepting of other elves. I would say that uh, there's a cultural gap, right? So um, so I think in the capital city of Ayadara, for example, there's a quarter. Uh, I'm going to space on the names here, but
Oh,
there's like
that's okay.
a district that's for half elves, Ayuvaran, and also for forlorn, because they, I guess, because the iodine culture is very specific and passed from generation to generation. So the forlorn who've grown up among humans and the Ivarn, they've been welcomed in Kionin for a long time now. Kionin
Mm-hmm.
is known for having closed borders, but if you're a half elf or even just a forlorn elf or even like a Moalaje or like a
Ekjay.
sand elf or
Yeah.
other kind of elf, you can come to Kionin, but you are a culturally distinct grouping from the rest of the elves. I don't think they mistrust you so much as you're not one of them in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now we have a framework for elves. That's where I was going for this because I myself am not experienced with the Pathfinder elves. They still have the pointy ears, but their eyes do kind of remind me of alien eyes, and that is appropriate. My GM was doing Ages of Ashes when I first encountered real elves, and I took a look at the eyes, and I'm going like, that's not an elf.
I do love the Pathfinder elf eyes. Actually, I think it's a really distinctive feature that basically their irises fill their entire eye more or less.
Mm-hmm. Uh, so we know elves are our friends. They come in peace, and then we get this demon lord turning their gates and portals, trying to get it in a passageway to the abyss so we can bring in more demons. Elves are pretty much our protagonists in this AP. And as I understand it, Queen Talandia of Kionin will call for a secret council to form an alliance against the Whispering Tyrant Tarbathon, who poses a threat to all nations around Lake Incarthan. But the thing is, it doesn't start there. It starts 6 months prior, I believe, with an attack on the beach where the PCs just happen to be, and this undead dragon and a Knight of Lastwall pretty much come out of the woodwork. I understand from God's Reign, the Lost, or whatever they're called, the undead that are under Tarbathon's purview in the Gravelands, pretty much know everything there is to being a Knight of Lastwall. They've retained all the statistics, all the tactics, and that is what makes them incredibly dangerous adversaries, is because they basically know what these champions and everything are going to try. So I'm going to move us over on the map. I'm going to put our heroes here. We have Athenor, who is, I can't say half-elf. I have to say a Uverin.
Stupid, sexy Athenor.
Yes, stupid, sexy Athenor is what we call him.
You can still say half elf. It's fine.
I
No
feel
one will
like
judge you.
I feel like I can't. I'm invested in this now. We have Morris, who is also an Ayuvaran, but he is a cavern elf Ayuvaran. Do
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you this. I was really hoping, and I don't think it'll happen. I was really hoping that we get some more Ayendalar Cavern Elf lore at
Mhm.
some point. And maybe we'll get it with Darklands. But I think that there's an opportunity to reinvent the Cavern Elves with second edition that I think they've sort of shied away from a little bit up to now because
the Second
they've been
Darkness.
stepping away from the Drow and stuff. Yeah, I'd love to see like how Second Darkness gets officially retconned, for example.
Hmm.
Is Kainen still around? Like all that stuff, I'm really fascinated by, and I'd love because I've run Second Darkness. I'd love for the events of that campaign to still matter in some way,
Hmm.
and for the lore to somehow be at least partly backwards compatible, if that makes sense.
Oh yes, I'm personally hoping that the Cavern Elves get involved in this AP. I would like to see them in some regard because it did mention the Darklands and getting up from below the surface in order to do the Jaharlu spores and whatnot centuries ago. So it might be a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah. The other cool thing is, and I know this because I did the Keonan deep dive. There's an organization within Keonan called the Lantern Bearers, the Shin Rakarath, and their leadership, the story there is they kind of got reorganized after the Second Darkness AP because um, they were in league with this like secret council that were like bad guys. But then they got reorganized by Queen Talandia after those events, and one of their leaders is an Ayendalar Cavern Elf, and it's
Hmm.
one of the few examples in the old first edition game where you had like a drow living in Keonan and being part of the service elf culture. So I hope that that's something that somehow stays, and that that's a character that pops up again at some point.
One last thing that shook loose from my head before we continue, and I have to say it. I'm sorry I labeled Wrinkle as a Dritz clone because he had a scimitar.
Yeah, you know what? That's totally fair.
Oh, we.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of
We can never unsee it now.
Oh, God.
that.
Halen is a normal human wizard. We have Davos, who is a kineticist. He's an Ardande. He has the green beard and the green hair and everything. His mother was a dryad. And we have Carcatrix, who is a druid. He is an awoken animal. He is a crab.
Awesome.
So the adventure starts with this knight coming down from the sky and these barges coming onto the beach. And the elves are sort of panicking and what to do. They're setting up their ballista, their siege weapons and whatnot, trying to take care of the barges. And the heroes who just happen to be here, they're going to save the day and fight the dragon. And this is the conflict that basically catches the queen's eye, because not only did they stand up to Tar-Baphon and save the beachhead, which is right adjacent to Greengold, but they did it at the most opportune time. That kind of makes her go forward a little ahead with her plan to have this sort of alliance with all the countries around Lake Incarthen, because in the middle of the lake is this island of terror where Tar-Baphon is. And no one can teleport there because he has strange bone-like gates and whatnot that if you were to teleport into his territory and try to do like a sneak attack on him, it teleports you directly into the middle of his army or something, and then he just wipes the floor with you. And after this skirmish, they're basically heralded as these would-be champions of the queen, and they get this special dinner with the queen. They get to see her. The queen has her own band play her in. I mean, that's something.
That's cool.
And once she does that, and, you know, like, they're schmoozing with all the elven nobles and whatnot, they're asking, you know, like, the heroes some questions. It's just like, what do you think can be done about this Tar-Bathon that the queen keeps talking about? And it's just like, Tar-Bathon? It's just like, most of these PCs aren't even going to know Tar-Bathon. So it's an opportunity.
No. Yeah, everybody. I mean, that feels like GM setup, right? Like, I feel like not knowing Tar-Bathon in the Pathfinder world would be like, I don't know. I think of a non-offensive example in the real world. Not knowing who Saddam Hussein is, you know, like you'd know. You'd have a passing familiarity with the name, right? I feel like it would
like
be
Elon Musk. Yeah, Elon Musk is the perfect Tar-Bathon, I think.
Yes, it's a name everybody knows. Everybody's got an opinion on. You know, I think. Yeah, I think the heroes probably would know. I mean, will they know how to deal with it? Probably not. But I also think, you know, if you think about the setup for this adventure, this is an opportunity as a GM for the heroes to react. Like, each of the, like, it would be great for there's limited space in an AP for them to get all this across, but each of the different nations that are represented should all have different opinions, and they should also not always agree. Like, I would imagine that the Ustalav guy is like, you guys don't know anything. We've been dealing with the Whispering Tyrant from the beginning when you elves were off world. You know what I mean? Because he's kind of
blasé. That's a good one. I love that one. We're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that as soon as we call the Alliance. That is perfect, sir. That is gold.
Absolutely, because I love the delegates, but we'll get to that in a second.
That's a bit of the Taldor Nice for you, from Ustalav. All right, so they talk with the queen, they talk with the nobles and whatnot. Several months later, they kind of get this proclamation going like, you guys are going to head the Queen's Alliance and basically get all these people to sign 4 articles for us. And these articles are going to bind everyone within non-aggression, self-defense, and also to take on other challenges that have been affected, not only because of God's reign, but mostly because of Tar-Bathon, because we need to unify in order to deal with him. And that's when you get places like Ustalav, Druma, Multhun, Nimras. Nimras and Multhun, I believe, hate each other, by the way, red versus green.
Yeah, they do. They're not. I think maybe less now than they used to because of the Oprak situation. But yes, no, they don't. They're not friendly.
Yeah, like from what I was reading, the Nimrathis and Multhun delegates barely even look at each other.
Oh yes. They try to ignore each other, like they're in class.
And to draw a small real-world comparison, it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, it feels like the situation between Taiwan and China almost.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's a lot of real-world parallels that you can draw there, but essentially, Multhun, I mean, it used to all be Multhun. There was no Nearmathis originally. Multhun broke from Cheliax during the Chelish Civil War, and then
they kept the
southern part of the country. Yeah, they kept the colors. The southern part of the country was the wealthier part of the country, and they controlled all the taxation, and they had a very hierarchical structure. And the northern part of the country eventually was like, why are we giving all our food to the south? Let's break free. And then they had a long kind of revolutionary war. I think one of my favorite tidbits is that the Molthuni burned the capital of Nirmathus to the ground 3 different times,
Oh god.
and the Nirmathi just rebuilt their capital every time, uh, because they could.
Yeah.
They're scrappy like that.
So, with the events of God Reign and whatnot, there are two extraplanar forces kind of goading Nimrothus and Molthun on. And that's the part that really disturbs me, is that when God Reign hit, like these outsiders kind of just like came in and said like, ah, yeah, mortals, we'll get them to fight each other for us. We'll see who wins. That's basically what it feels like in the Eye of Dread, anyway.
Um, I don't know if it's canonical or not, but does Gorham's blood play any part in escalating this conflict?
For the Jaharlu sphere, spores, or for Nimrothus and Molthun?
For Nimrothus and Molthun.
Basically, anyone hit by the Red Rain wants war. Big time.
Yeah, so it probably does. That would be the right assumption. Is that the only, again, the kind of third player in that whole mess is Oprak, right? Where Oprak basically emerged in, I think canonically now, 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago,
Yeah.
because I think that was 2018 that came out. So Malthun and Yarmathus have been fighting each other for decades, and then Hobgoblins showed up and conquered a chunk of Malthun and a quarter of Yarmathus. So it's a bit risky to go to war when you've got the new upstart Hobgoblin nation right next door, and they're expansionist and militaristic and frankly very well funded and very well organized. So I think their conflict is probably, there's a tempering influence in their conflict right now.
Mm, mm. So, good time for peace then.
Yes, potentially. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, let's take a look at our delegates, shall we? I'm sure they're all very wonderful, well put together people, without their own, like agendas and whatnot.
Politicians with agendas? Straight to hell, you say?
Straight to hell, I say. Carcatrix would be on the table because he is a crab. I personally think they did a fantastic job with the art for all of the people here. And the first one I want to look at, yep, Chalzo Rove. She represents Druma, the country that defeated the dwarves with student loans.
That's exactly right. Before we get into the delegates, actually, I just a thought for GMs
Sure.
that are planning to run this. So the AP presents 6 different nations that are part of the Encarthan Alliance. I would say that you don't necessarily need to feel totally limited to these 6, because if you're like me and you've run a few Pathfinder games, this is a really great opportunity to bring in some old NPCs. So, for example, if I was running this after I ran War for the Crown with my War for the Ground group, then I would probably have Aurelius and maybe Diana at this event representing Taldor. Taldor is not officially a member of the Encarthan Alliance, but it would, what a cool opportunity to see what your PCs look like 5 years later when these events are taking place. Now that they're sort of ambassadors for the country, right? Or if you ran, Curse of the Crimson Throne, you could have some Corvosans, or if you ran, what I'm saying is there's an opportunity here to kind of mix it up if that served your play group, right?
I like that.
That really gave me a neat idea, because I'm running Triumph of the Tusk now, and it could possibly go into Spore War. There's a universe where Kestrel could be the representative from Lastwall here.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Kestrel is you have an all-male PC class, and they all see Kestrel as their girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that would be really cool. And if you're running Triumph of the Tusk, you could even go like way out and say, you know what, the orcs of Belkzen have submitted. You know,
Oh
Ardax
yeah,
the Whitehair has submitted a member. Like he's pretty close to the Incarson Circle, right? He could
right.
submit somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe
Regnat the
later this
Green
year.
for president.
Oh god, the druid? I don't think he would. Well, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, Tree Raiser. Maybe. All right. So, would you like to refinance your student loans? 40% markup. The representative from Druma is Chalzo Rove, and she is this. I love her introduction. Actually, the first thing she does is she goes over to the players and she kind of goes like, "Oh, who did your weapons, armor, and clothes? They look nice." And then she kind of gives them the card and goes like, "I know the best tailors in Smith and all of Galarian, by the way." And she just kind of walks away. And it's just like, I love that. I love how much personality they cram in into just like one little interaction.
Yeah, that's a perfect intro to a Calistocrat. Druma is a nation I definitely did not know much about until I wrote the Druma deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to do the research. But it's great, and what an opportunity for a colorful cast of characters here. Yeah,
We have the one from Malthun, Walder Reskit. I believe he is a naval officer, and Malthun has the strongest navy in all of Lake Carthen. So it's like the size of Lake Michigan or bigger, like something where a navy is a significant force.
yeah. The other thing to keep in mind about Lake and Carthen is that um, by way of the Selwyn River, it's connected to the inner sea. So um, there is naval traffic that runs all the way from Absalom and the places that we know along the sea
Mm-hmm.
into Lake Garthen.
Oh,
And
nice.
in fact, by way of the Selwyn River, it's also connected to the Lake of Mists and Vales, which is the other really big lake way up in the northeast, by Mendev and Brevoy and all that area. So the in Carthen Circuit's a pretty critical trade path, and I think part of the reason that Multhune has maintained its uh, economic dominance is because of its large navy and the fact that it oversees a lot of the trade that happens across these nations.
Wow. That's a huge fact that I'm glad I have now for this AP. He does not like the Nimrothis lady, and he does not look at her. He kind of just stays with his own little cadre of people, and it's really weird that the visual tells that you get between the two of them, because here you have her, and like you said, they're scrappy. She definitely does look scrappy in comparison to him.
That is great art. That is
Mm.
great art.
She looks like she's seen some very bad things.
Yeah, the other thing I should mention is that the city I mentioned we were chatting a bit in the intro that when the Whispering Tyrant conquered Last Wall, he used the Radiant Fire to destroy a couple cities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Vigil obviously being the important one because it was the capital of Last Wall, but he also destroyed. Oh man, I'm not Cassin, but another city that's basically on the border between Lastwall and Nermathus. So
Mm-hmm.
Nermathus was pretty badly damaged during the Tyrant's conquest of Lastwall.
Oh God. Oh, which of these countries do you think has lost the most? Because I think it's Ustalov and Lastwall. I'd say both of them.
I think historically Ustalav has lost the most. Uh, because they were complete. Ustalav was completely conquered by Tar-Baphon when he was mortal, and then defeated by Aradin. He was completely conquered by Tar-Baphon the second time he showed up, and before he was defeated by Iomedae. But this third time, uh, they've weathered the storm. I would say probably better than Nirmathas. Also, Nirmathas has lost a third of its territory to the hobgoblins.
Mm.
So uh, if she looks a little world weary, Nirmathas had a rough go of it these last few years.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that definitely explains her expression. She's looking around like, oh god. Oh god. Now, we have Gorian the Glad. He's the representative from Last Wall. He is actually an orc raider turned knight. And he's got the little glasses and everything. He looks kind of like a sage almost. He's not who I think of within the typical orcish raider. Like, he's had a glow up, basically.
Yeah, he looks like somebody that is part of sort of the political wing of the Knights of Last Wall, not a traditional combatant, right?
Mm. So it's really odd, and I didn't want to sound mean when I said it, but I look at him and I go like, who did he steal the glasses from? And I'm going like, no, I can't do that. I can't think like that. His raiding days are behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably exactly right. I think you can see the silver in his hair, you know. But yeah, I think he's maybe a former raider. Um, I must admit I've not read the supporting material here, so you'll have to tell me. But I assume this is meant to be an older character.
Yes. So, with him in particular, and most of the orcs who are aging, they're really getting into this reoccurring theme where you see older and older orcs try to reform on their ways. Because in Triumph of the Tusk, if you don't accept the modernization, you are killed. Like, they did kind of like, I don't want to say a purge. Iron, how would you put it? It wasn't a purge, right?
Polite parlance is restructuring, I think.
Restructuring.
Yeah, that was well underway. I think with before Ardax the Whitehair took power, right? I think Grask Olbeth was like, we've got to
Yes.
reinvent ourselves a bit.
And then he was
Ardax
reinvented.
He was pretty transformative. He embraced Trunau. He helped establish Freedom Town.
Mm-hmm.
He opened up trade with humans in ways that had never sort of happened before. Um, so yeah, I would imagine that we'll see more orcs like this. And again, this is the great strength of Pathfinder's living world, right? So when I started playing Pathfinder in 2008, most of the orcs were savage barbarians. Now, 17 years later, you have plenty of orcs that are, like ready to embrace a new way and have sort of, and 17 years is a long time in the space of, as we see in the real world, a lot of culture can shift pretty radically in 17 years. So
Oh,
this is kind
yes.
of cool.
Even in 1 year.
Yep.
All right. And the next representative is from Ustalav, whom I believe looks a great deal like Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just projecting onto him.
Is he a vampire or is that just makeup?
It's just
Or is it
makeup.
vampire?
Yeah,
It's just makeup. Okay.
Yeah, it's just makeup. So his excuse, and this is good. The sun rarely shines in Ustalav. And everyone in the conference is looking at him going like, is he going to drink our blood? Should we let him in here? He's out during the daytime. They can come out during the daytime?
So I will say one of my...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
No, I love that, like, part of the telegraphing between delegates is the last wall delegate looking at the Ustalav delegate like, he seems not normal. But when you ask him about it, it's like, well, he looks kind of sickly. I'm like, is that what we're calling it now?
Yeah, he's definitely got a vibe, this guy. Sometimes you see a piece of art and you're like, I know exactly how I GM this guy. Like, this guy's super arrogant. He thinks he knows more about what's going on than anybody
Oh
else.
yes. You've hit the nail right on the head, sir. He is actually the third nephew, the youngest nephew of the current ruler of Ustalav. So technically he is in line. Yep.
One of the cool things about Ustalav is that there are a bunch of vampires in the country, but also I think my favorite thing is that during the second war with Tar-Baphon, when essentially Tar-Baphon conquered all of Ustalav except for the Archduchy of Melkat, which I'm sure we'll get to this guy next, which then became Rezmirin later on in the course of the history of the region. The people inside Ustalav that really galvanized resistance to the Whispering Tyrant when it was under occupation were vampires. So there was a vampire lord named Ludwig Sirvaj, who I think essentially the concept here is that Tar-Baphon's vision is kind of like a world of death, right?
Yes.
He like to see all life extinguished, and that's not good for vampires.
No, they need
vampires
the
need
living.
people.
Well, there was actually a Netflix show, Castlevania, about that, where Dracula tried to kill everybody, and the other vampires were like, no, we need people.
That's exactly what happened in Ustalav. So there's a little bit of a the Ustalavic vampires are also anti-Tar-Baphon. So that's why I was curious if this guy was an actual vampire or if it was just his style.
Yeah, that brings something else from Triumph of the Tusk into context. Remember how we wondered why a vampire in book 1 of Triumph of the Tusk was openly anti-Tar-Baphon?
Yeah, he left
Now that
Ustalav.
makes sense.
He left Ustalav because he could hear Tar-Baphon in his head, and he was like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
Yeah. There was a big vampire schism in the Second War. There was Ludwig Sirvaj led one faction of vampires against Tar-Baphon, and another vampire named Malleus, I think Malleus the Bloodlord, sided with Tar-Baphon, and there was a big like vampire war that happened, which is a pretty cool tidbit of lore. But yeah, there are plenty of vampires that are anti-Whispering Tyrant.
Oh boy, this is a lot. This is a lot in one little room, and you have the queen's cousin kind of like on the sidelines with the players going like, you gotta get them to sign number 2 and number 3. Doesn't matter if they sign number 1 and number 4, but you gotta get them to sign articles 2 and 3, which are basically, they'll send us siege engines and magic and all those things. I don't care if Nimrothis and Multhun kill each other. That's fine, but you gotta get me 2 and 3. You gotta get me those 2. And last but not least, my favorite character, and he is so good. This guy is written extremely well, and he's a blonde. Extra points for being a blonde. His name is Alzarius. Now, originally, his mother was elven, and his father was human. Now, his human father embraced Razmir, the living god. Elven mother didn't take kindly to that, and that created a lot of tension in his household.
So another quick tidbit here, Razmir and I think that's probably changed at the start of this AP, but Razmir and Keonin have technically been at war for 30, 40 years.
Really?
Razmir and missionaries kept trying to infiltrate Keonin, and eventually Keonin built a living wall of trees that protect their northern border called the Burn. And so Rasmirans are not welcome at all in Keonan. And every year, Keonan takes a fairly large number of in fact, really the only humans that traditionally were permitted in Keonan were Rasmiran refugees as kind of a goodwill mission. And so they would take in every year people that wanted to escape the cult. They would be allowed through the berm.
Oh, that's really neat. I did not know that. That really fits into his character, actually, because his mother left the family to move up north to escape the whole Rasmiran cult thing. His father died on a faith barge in a fire, and I'm going like, faith barge? That doesn't make any sense. I go back to your video, and I go back to Podfinder's video, and you go like pirates. And I'm going like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, that's why the Druma lady hates this guy. Because of piracy. She calls it pirates. He calls it faith barges.
Yes, the Rizmirans create these like big ships that they send down through the river kingdoms and across Lake and Carthan. But basically, it's I mean they are kind of pirates, but mostly they grab people. They grab people and they forcibly conscript them into the faith and bring them back and make them part of you know, the crazy cult that they have going on in Razmir. And also, I don't know if you remember this from my Druma video, the Razmiri faith barges have, on two different occasions, besieged port towns in Druma. So the Drumish and the Razmiri don't see particularly eye to eye either. And the Razmiri faith considers the Drumish Calistocracy to be a cult, and the Drumish Calistocracy considers the Razmiri faith to be a false religion, accurately. But yeah, they're not particularly friendly. So this is a big step that she's invited, and it probably it suggests how concerned all the nations are about the Whispering Tyrant. That A, Razmir is present, and B, that Near Mathis and Malthuna are in a room together.
Well, they are in a room together, but they're still not talking to each other. It's still a step in the right direction, I suppose, because basically this is like a Camp David for the next 5 days, where the players are basically going to get to talk to them in small council, is what it's called, and they've got their own little cabins that are isolated from each other, just like the little identical cabins that they kind of do in Camp David.
It's a cool setup.
It is. It really is. And Alzarius, he's not the traditional Razmiran guy. First of all, he takes off his mask as a show of friendship. They're not allowed to take off the masks, are they?
No, they are not. That is cool.
Yep. And behind that mask is a beautiful, beautiful blonde man. And I'm hoping there's a lot of like disagreement between him and Athanor, because he is also an Iuveran. And you know, I'd like it for them to have a rivalry going on and get some like get some good roleplay there. But I think they're going to be interested first in probably dealing with Chalzo, the Druma lady, because she has connections. I think like she more than anyone is going to benefit from the Incarthan Alliance, because everyone is going to buy all the materials of war from her and supplies from her. That's one of the aspects of the treaty, is that you will buy from the Alliance. And what she does is, depending on the influence that you score with the others, they're willing to pay a certain markup to her. And you can get that all the way up, I believe, to 40% markup from market price. So she's...
That is good for the Calistocracy. I tell you, it'd be really fun to play a Calistocrat character, or any Dreamish character, really, in this particular AP. I think that'd be really awesome.
Mm. And it would give them a tie. That would give them a tie. I'd probably start them off at least one influence with her. like because they're like-minded.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there would be a bunch of like fun character concepts that you could kind of toy with about why such a character would get involved in sort of bringing the Carthan alliance together. And honestly, similarly, you could do something like that for Rosmiri characters as well. Razmir is in an interesting place right now. Razmir himself is getting older, and
Hmm.
he is approaching his final years. He has not been able to acquire a Sun Orchid Elixir, which was his sort of out. And
He could just steal
there's
one.
some rumors that he's losing his mind a little. He's tried. he has he's tried to steal it. He's tried to buy it. He's some of his he in fact won the bid at the last Sun Orchid election, but then he couldn't pay the amount that he promised.
Hmm.
So the Thubian delegate basically denied him the elixir, and he's been sending that guy threatening letters for a while now. But there's these little signs that stuff in Razmir is changing. So the fact that this guy takes off his mask is one of them. Also, the new Pathfinder Society, uh, Lost Omens guide talks about the venture captain. There's a Razmiri venture captain now that's
Oh
never
yes,
happened
him.
before.
Yep, yep, yep.
He's got a ton of leeway. So there's definitely some interesting stuff happening just in the last 5 years in Razmir that player characters could kind of play around with if they were so inclined.
Yes, one of the things I would like to do if I do a homebrew is I would like to have a campaign in Zur because of that lodge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Zur, and I believe you get a map of Zur right in this
Yep,
AP.
yep, we're going to take a look.
Yeah.
All right, so for the first day, they're basically going to do their introductions, and what they are expected to do is to sign a writ of commitment that they are actually here to talk about peace and that they're actually here to like entertain the queen's proposition. Of course, the queen is not here, and the major representatives from their countries are not here. These are like a few men down from that, because the queen's reasoning for that is that Tar-Baphon would act if he saw all those important players in one place. And oh,
Interesting.
yep, the queen basically says like, okay, give me second fiddles, people who are
Yeah. Yeah.
powerful enough to actually affect change and sign the agreement, but not so powerful that if they were to die in a surprise attack by Tar-Baphon, that like their countries would cease functioning. So over the course of
That's
the
a cool
next,
setup.
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a cool setup. It makes each of these characters kind of interesting, sort of social climbers, where they're important in their nation, but not, at the apex.
Mm-hmm. So for the next couple of days, you do the small councils, you get them all the way up, and you kind of find out that some of them won't be here for the entire AP. The man from Lastwall in particular, the Glad, he outright refuses. He does sign the non-aggression, I believe, but to a certain extent, he's just looking around the room and going like, this isn't going to work. We're not going to commit. It really feels like him more than anyone stood to benefit from this, especially with the fall of Lastwall. I don't get why when you max out his influence, he's like, like you're not going to see him for the rest of the events of Spore War.
I don't know. I haven't read the AP, but I wonder if maybe this is a case of, the Knights of Lastwall being quite sort of hardlined and viewing, especially the Resmiri, and maybe to a lesser extent the Molthuni as being um, not people that they want to do a deal with.
Hmm.
What's the justification kind of given in the AP?
I shall tell you. In the meantime, Iron, what are your thoughts on the delegates?
Huh. Where to begin? Um, I really like the Nimrothis delegate. Um, I feel like she does kind of get a raw deal politically because one of Multhun's hard sticking points here is not to recognize Nimrothis as really existing. So it puts the PCs in a really interesting position where if they sympathize with Nimrothis, how do they reconcile that with what they're trying to do here?
Ah, that is exactly the reasoning that he gives you at Influence 14. He will allow them to exclude the article of non-aggression between each other, but the fact that the players are willing to capitulate and allow it is a real thing that disappoints him. And I'm doing my best to summarize this without reading it verbatim.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. So basically, the last wall guy is like, if you can't get non-aggression, a commitment of non-aggression, then this is a waste of our time. Um, I think that's an interesting character trait, and you know, I'm of the mind that GMs should feel free to kind of modify the AP as they see fit. I probably would have. I don't know if the AP stipulates that no matter what the players do, he walks out. I would probably try to make it so that there is a path to that. But I think there is something really cool about. There's something real feeling about partial success,
Mm-hmm.
because that's real life. We don't
Yeah.
always succeed in every way. So if somebody ends up leaving in a huff and not agreeing to an alliance, that feels true to life, to a large extent.
Yeah, even where the tyrant is concerned.
I mean, the Knights of Last Wall have already lost their nation. What more can they lose?
I suppose that's one way to look at it. It's all these other guys that have stuff to lose.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So for the next 3 days, you're basically catering to these delegates. Iron, you said where to begin. Can you give me your opinion on Ustalav and Razmir, since you gave me your opinion on Malthun and Nimrothis?
I laughed most of the way through the Ustalov delegate because he's just that entertaining.
So he
Because
doesn't.
he's just sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Because he just comes off as just not caring about anything that's happening. To the point where when the PCs meet with him, there's usually a party happening.
That's a pretty great NPC.
He is. He really is. He's a spoiled brat, and he plays like a spoiled brat, which is good. I like when they actually live up to their character.
And then, like, when he actually kind of like dials into what's happening, it still feels appropriate without it being like a jarring character switch.
Yeah, good luck getting these idiots to agree on anything, is what he says in passing.
I really did like Alzarius because he and I feel like the AP did a really good job of making him a sympathetic character, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. I do agree. He feels like he's feeling the call of adventure, and he wants to be the hero that his elven blood is related to, and it kind of awakens in him when he's with the players.
Yeah, and that kind of they elaborate on that a lot throughout this AP, even in this first chapter. especially at the point when after like all the meetings, or not after, during all the meetings, don't they take a tour of Green Gold during
Oh yeah, the gardens
the
and
delegation?
stuff. Yep, the
Yeah,
temple. Basically, the queen is showing off at this point.
but Alzarius has a moment in Green Gold where you see him kind of connect to his elven heritage.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed with that whole scene and
Yes.
how the players can possibly interact with that scene.
The best part of all is he's got the mask on and you can't tell what his emotions are, but his actions still betray him, and you get to see more of him even with his mask on. It's really well done.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love a nuanced character that you're not totally sure. A sympathetic villain sometimes works this way. Just any character. If you've been watching my 616 series, Gul Guizarn was that for me, and he's kind of on the other side of the of the fence, so to speak. But
Mm.
my players really liked him, and it'd be cool to do something like that with this character here,
I
where
hope he comes
there's
back.
a sinister edge, but he's got a heart under that.
Yeah, I really do hope he comes back. After the duel, I felt like he was like, I'll get my revenge.
He will come back. Not in a huge or dramatic way, but yeah, there is some more cool eventually.
Good. Good, good. I really did like him. Him and Marius connected very well. All right. I think we've pretty much figured out Druma. Druma is here to make profit. Boy, will she make profit. Um, what about Nimrothus? I mean, like, is she just the unfortunate person here, Iron, or is she going to actually be contributing something?
It honestly feels like a little bit of both because I think she recognizes her position and knows that like it's not exactly the strongest in the world.
Right, but she's not helpless.
Not at all.
Yeah,
And interestingly enough, suggesting that she is helpless is bad for the PCs.
Mm.
yeah, and that would make sense, and in keeping with sort of the Nirmathi character, right? Because they are on they and Ustalav are the two countries here that are directly bordering the Gravelands. They also border Oprak, and they border Belkzen, and they border Malthun. Essentially, they're surrounded by enemies. So the Nirmathi are scrappy. Like they know how to fight,
They hold
and
their
they
own.
they take care of themselves. They hold their own. Yeah.
Good, good. I'm glad we got that impression from her because I didn't want her to feel like she was the helpless one in the room.
Yeah,
It like
she's the most poorly financed, and she can't offer weapons. But if you were to deploy a platoon of Neomathi Rangers, I think they'd be among the toughest warriors in the entire Encarthan region.
Oh, nice. Okay, so at the end of the 5 days, and when you can get people to agree at least to Articles 2 and 3, because that's the big one about this. They don't mention triumph points until the very, very end. And it's so weird that they choose not to mention the triumph points here, but at the end, because if you don't get the delegates to agree on 2 and 3, you don't earn those triumph points, and that's basically the grading system for how successful you are in Spore War. And I was under the impression that the big clincher was going to be the death of Tree Raiser. That was going to be success, but there are apparently other factors that we're not aware of yet until we get to book 2, so that'll be next month. And at the end of those 5 days, The doors burst open to the delegation. And this man with a staff shouts, "No one expects the Razmiran Inquisition! Kill them all!" To which Alzarius is going, "What?" Because here you have this priest of Razmir, this priest of the 13th step, and they're attacking him in the name of the living God. They want all the Alliance to die. And everyone's looking at the priest, going like, "You did this."
It's a good setup. Yep.
It is.
While they are actively trying to kill him.
Yep. You know what would be really unfortunate? If mechanically these assassins were all 4 levels lower than the PCs, so that they would be crit to death each time they were touched. So here you have these level 11 PCs crit shitting these level 7 assassins. There's the head mage, he's the biggest one. He's like a level 10. And there's basically like 13 assassins about. And even if you try to leave them alive, every single one of them has taken like an arsenic potion or whatnot that as a free concentrate action, they can just die.
Got it. That's intentional. You can't interrogate anyone, right?
Right.
So I read that and immediately I was, and forgive me for saying this, I read it, I was like, oh, this is the Bramble special.
Yes. So Bramble has used the arsenic in the false tooth before on the players. So yes, there are bad memories of that happening. I apologize for the bad memories.
Oh no, you have nothing to apologize for.
So when this happens, and the queen witnesses it through the eyes of her cousin, through the Verduran crown, and she just sees everything happen. First of all, everyone's wounded, even Alzarius, which is incredibly suspect. Why would they kill one of their own? Why wasn't he the one to do the attack? Why didn't he, like, duck down and stuff? He actually goes and shields the Nimrathus lady, I believe, during the conflict.
Cool. I mean, I think from a story standpoint, that's pretty justifiable. Razmir himself is known to have plots within plots, so it would be entirely in keeping with his character that he would send a delegate and not tell the delegate that he was planning to kill everyone.
That's where it gets really interesting. And this is where we conclude Chapter 1 and start to go into Chapter 2 with sort of like an autopsy phase. It's not an investigation subsystem, which is really confusing. It's basically what do you want to do as the player? Speak with dead ritual, I believe, will not work because you need to know the victim's name, and they have no identification on any of them. Nothing to suggest their name or anything.
Oh, real quick, just to circle back to the end of Chapter 1, there is a point where I don't know how I feel about this, but it does say that if the PCs have not influenced a particular delegate...
Oh, they die. Yeah, they're dead.
Yes.
They're gone. It's just like...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you fail to influence them, they get a sudden desire to lemming themselves.
Out of curiosity, which delegate is at risk?
I'm not certain. It depends completely on the influence. So basically, anyone you might have ignored.
Oh, I see. I understand. If you don't, yes, it's not a specific delegate that this applies to. It's any delegate that you fail to influence altogether.
Mm-hmm. Negative influence, excuse me.
Got it. That's interesting.
But you would have to work really hard to get negative influence with somebody. That would be a lot of botched checks.
And
yeah, it could be.
Honestly, Oh, it's not only botched checks. There's certain things that you can do to people that will immediately cause negative influence using like they say specifically, hey, don't use like mind control or things like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's what I is that like so. Also, you never know with RPG. Sometimes a play group will have a player that's like, I'm a character from near Mathis and I hate Malthune, and so they they're intentionally as part of their like role playing being awful to the Malthuni delegate. And so they have negative influence, and then the Malthuni delegate dies, and maybe they feel bad, maybe they don't. I don't know. But
see,
right, I can totally see that happening.
as a DM in that situation, not to put us too much on a tangent, I would instead give them sort of like a rivalry system. You know, like they
Mm,
expect that from each other. So the fact that they're even engaging with one another, that's still something.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like that.
All right. So the beginning of chapter 2 is basically an autopsy phase. You play CSI Green Gold, and you need to investigate the bodies, see what's suspicious about them, and as you're cutting them open, you get like autopsy tools by the elven investigator. He like has autopsy tools, and he expects you to do it. And I'm like, the players are gonna do this. I I guess Morris would do it. Morris is kind of like the investigator sort of type. He's a rogue. He's very handy with tools. He specializes in woodworking, but yeah, I can see him doing this one. And if you're successful, you get a filament in their intestines or their guts, which is fungal in nature.
Of course.
Yep. So at this point, Alzeris is behind bars. And he's going like, I didn't do this. And he, like he's got his arm bandaged and everything. The elven investigator is basically saying like, it is kind of suspicious that he was attacked. Maybe that was a ploy. I don't know. Maybe you should go over to the inn where they were staying, try to find something. So you go to the inn in Greengold, and the innkeeper is this little halfling woman, and she basically goes like, oh, those people. And she just opens up all the rooms. It takes absolutely no convincing. And as you begin searching their rooms, they made a makeshift altar to Razmir. And lo and behold, the assassination instructions fell behind the altar.
So, point of clarification, we're talking about the assassins and not Alzarius's delegation.
Correct. Alzarius's delegation is completely separate. And the note basically says, and this is weird, because it comes from Alzarius's not subordinate, not superior, the person at the same 13th step as he is. And Alzarius knows this guy. And he's saying, like, to the person in the letter, and now you actually have a name that you can use Speak Undead with because you know the leader's name. Kill all the council, kill Alzarius, do it in the name of the living God, and, you'll have secured your place within Razmir's secret realm or whatever. It's just like, I'll see you when you get back. Have a nice assassination. So they honestly thought that they were gonna get away with this and everything, but on the same volition, they all took their arsenic Kool-Aid beforehand, just in case anything happened. But they completely had plans to get back there. Which ship they were taking is in the letter as well. It's much more than I was thinking would happen at the beginning. People have used the term slow burn. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I could see that.
So
I will say though that from what I understand, the arsenic Kool-Aid, as it were, they had no idea what they were taking.
Right. What is it? When someone has a better mask than you do what they say without question. There's iron, and then there's silver, and then there's gold, kind of like that, depending on the step. So that's why they never questioned it. So at this point, you can bring the letter back to Alzerius, and he sees his fellow's name on the letter, and he goes like, I know this guy. I don't know why he wants me dead. I want to know what happened. Please take me with you. I can't go as a mask. He takes off his mask again at this point. And he's basically saying, like, I will come with you. We'll pretend to be merchants, because merchants are always welcome in Zur. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to get harassed by the masks there. And it's just like, like, pay them. And the players will be like, what? No, just pay them. Complain about needing to pay, but pay them. That's how things go around here. This is kind of like your tithe for doing business with us. So we get to see all those inner Razmiri politics. If they do anything to basically attract attention to themselves, that makes things more difficult. Here's Zer. You can see the Faith District is here, walled up from the lower district. That's where all the poor people are. All the rich people are here.
I'm not seeing Zer for some reason. I'm still seeing the... Oops.
Odd. I have you.
Now I'm seeing it there.
Oh, okay. Iron, did you disconnect?
No, I think I didn't minimize the windows of the characters that you popped up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another thing with Foundry. We do have modules for pop out. I apologize for not putting them on for this one.
Oh, but yeah, I'm fine. I had to refresh, but we're good.
No problem.
You know what? I'm looking at this map of Zer, and I gotta say, I really wish that I had this map when I made my Resmiran region deep dive.
Yeah, it
looks great.
It does. It's one of the nice things we get. We don't know what we're going to get with new APs. I didn't expect that I needed to know anything about Razmir for this. So, typical Razmir settlement, the Faith District is where all the money is, and the Low District is where all the peasants are. They get beat up and they get taxed into starvation. That's basically what I got from both yours and Podfinder's video. We had the one adventure in Razmir, I think, and that was it.
Yeah, there was like a connected series of standalone modules that were kind of set in Razmir, but that's basically it, I think, for first edition anyway. I'm trying to think if there's any. There's a bunch of Pathfinder Society modules that take place in and around here.
I'll have to look them up later.
Oh, and of course there's the Razmiran Wrath of the Righteous expansion pack. It's got some more Razmiran content as well.
I didn't know about that one. So you get to Zer, and you get all these very colorful characters that may or may not have information, one of which is a goblin with a boot that has fungus growing in it. And he's going like, yes, you want boot? You pay. And it's like you can talk him down to basically nothing. But it's a very cute scenario where he's just trying to sell you this boot. And eventually, with everything that you can pull together from the investigation, and if you don't get thrown out or thrown in jail, because getting thrown in jail is a very real possibility in here. With the way that I don't want to say police, the thugs, the Iron Masks.
Yeah. They're the police. You can call them the police. That's essentially what they are. Yeah. I mean, it's a society where a kind of a broken society, but they are effectively the law here.
Oh, Hercule says Strange Aeons also has a part in Razmir, or a stop in Razmir.
That is also true. Yes, they did. There is a stop in Razmir and Strange Eons.
You basically find out that the boot and everything else is connected to the sewers. And we all know how great the sewer levels are in RPGs, right?
Yeah, like there's like a strange fungal connection, and then all of a sudden you're in a sewer. That's totally coincidental, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we get our first demon of
Oh yay! This old art.
Yep. These are the
Blind
sewage
demon.
demons.
Yeah. I believe I talk about these guys in my Demon's Religion video.
Mm-hmm. And it's very weird, isn't it? That in the Living God sewers, there are demons? Why would there be demons?
I'm pretty sure there are demons in every sewer, in every. You know, we haven't gotten there yet, but in War for the Crown, in an upcoming book, they go into the sewers of a city, and they get attacked by a small army of they're called ectothropes, something like that. They're like lycanthropes, but they're insects.
Oh,
And I don't
God.
know, like if you have a
That
sewer
is
in a fantasy city, there's something gross in there that wants to eat you.
that is terrifying, and I'm here for it.
Mm. We also get these new guys, Grizzers. They have that weird trick with their stomach where they can basically steal things and keep it inside. They kind of remind me a little bit about another campaign setting where creatures would have extra dimensional stomachs, but basically if you use their stomachs, they would basically be like bags of holding.
Oh, I like that. That's cool.
So those guys are down here. We get nice loot from their chests, or excuse me, from their nests. And another weird thing is, within the sewers, you have all these etched fireball runes for hazards. And it's just like, who would be down here that they would need something like this? And in a sewer of all places where the methane could ignite.
Yeah, I mean, for dungeon crawls, it's best not to ask those questions. I will say though that this is my first time. Like I said, I don't do a lot of virtual gaming. I'm more of a old school kitchen table guy. But I love the Foundry support that the module has, and this map looks great.
Oh, it's about to get even better, sir. We haven't gotten to the maze yet. You're gonna like this, because we've got a set of macros we can show off for you.
Oh, cool.
You get to a suspension bridge, and I believe these are also something you might be familiar with. The Ulfolths. They're aberrations. They feed on garbage.
Interesting. Are these guys are these the new Otyugs?
Basically, yes, that's exactly what I thought of during the pump house with the ghouls and whatnot. That's the word I was looking for. The tentacles and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I was curious if yeah. So I bet the Ophalth is the name for the new Otyug, because the Otyug is of course an old OGL name, which means that it's getting pulled out as part of remaster. So yes, this is to use a non-weird fantasy name, a classic three-legged swamp beast. I love these things. These put these in every adventure. I love swamp beasts.
And at this point, during during the dungeon. You can actually get back up if you want the players to, but you run into this place where there's a secret entrance, and I'm going to use the Foundry thing, take you right down there. And it's really neat, because if you look at it through the eyes of the player, because you have GM vision, you'll actually be able to see the door, but if you were looking through the eyes of the player, you would not see that secret door icon there, or the map writings.
Yeah, this is the stuff that as a kitchen table player, I basically spend ages drawing maps on giant grid paper to lay out on the table. And it does not look nearly as good as this.
That's one of the things I love the most about Foundry, especially with these virtual settings, is we can get these neat token rings. We can get these fantastic 3D dice. And if you want a token, you just make a token. You don't need to have like a physical piece or anything. Take a look at your Razmiri boys and what happened to them.
Oh no, they've gone all fungusy.
Yeah. Someone needs to tell them about Athlete's Foot Cream. So at this point, it's becoming more and more apparent that you're seeing all these rotting cultists and everything. And
Could be a cult of Tree Razor all along.
Yeah. So you see the rotting masks, and Elzarius, if he's with your party at this point, goes like, there's no way that these people are part of my religion. The mask is very sacred. They would never allow it to get this filthy or broken. It is against Razmir's will. And the best thing about Elzarius is he's not uppity about the religion to the point where he shoves it down your throat. He's giving you genuine information, but he's also withholding stuff. He's not telling you everything. He's not going to tell you the inner workings of the church. He's just going to tell you what you need to know.
That's great. That's such a great and well-defined character. That's cool.
I think part of what they detail about Elzarius in Chapter 1 is that he's very open to religious debate.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that can really attach him to the PCs, is he wants to know about which gods they worship, and he'll look for tells, like Athanor will probably have it on his lapel that he worships the Red Angel, the Vengeance guy. What's his name?
Yeah, I was just trying to pull it from my memory banks as well.
Regathiel.
Yes, Regathiel. Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. I've lost a wing in a fight. That guy.
Yes. So, at this point, it's becoming clearer and clearer something is up here. Yep, Hercule's got it too. It is Regathiel. The fungus is not just in their stomachs. It was all over their bodies. Something is going on. There are demons in the sewers. You can actually find this room right over here, where they have new captives. And they have 2 people that are currently undergoing the metamorphosis. They're not showing any signs at present, but if you trust them, they will betray you, because they have that thing after a certain number of stages where they are controlled by a specific NPC, whether they know it or not. Because for some reason, this fungus has the divine trait and telepathy. So it's kind of connected in a, not a hive mind, but it is connected mentally. And it basically tells you to serve Tree Razor, and he'll make the pain go away. It's very, very dark stuff. So after you get past all that, let's take Athanor over here. You come down these stairs, And then you come to this maze. And this maze is really neat. I'm glad you have the GM permissions because you can actually see what's going on here. You see these doors, C, B, and A, and where the triggers are?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So normally on your tabletop where you're drawing and redrawing things, something like this can become a little bit cumbersome. But with the macros, you can see those doors opening and closing as I'm pressing them.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But that's not the best part. The best part is they are actually automatic by region if a player steps on those tiles. So even if the DM doesn't act, the players can solve the puzzle all on their own.
That's cool. I love this kind of thing. As you saw on the War for the Crown thing, I like to leave my players with a puzzle sometimes and see, watch them puzzle it out.
They didn't do so well with the TV. I remember that one.
They struggled a bit.
So
They needed a couple nudges.
are you ready to see who's the mastermind behind the assassination?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So this is Ventilax, Alzarius's fellow on the 13th step. He is now the rotting god. And as you can see by this vast fungal network and this thing behind him, he's actually connected to somebody.
Oh, that is cool.
So basically how it plays out is this. Once they defeat him and this incomplete Jaharlu spore is taken care of, that sends a message back to Lucarazel. And Lucarazel is the one that Tree Razor trusted with the Jaharlu spore that's currently growing under Green Gold. The second the players defeat him, he knows something is up, because Lucarazel is the one who infected Ventalax. Ventalax is the one who called out the hit on Alzarius and all the other members of the Incarthan Alliance. The reason he did this is because he felt the Incarthan Alliance threatened Tree Razor, his lord, when in fact it was supposed to be towards Tar-Baphon. So he kind of played the hand early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also makes sense from like a Tree Razor standpoint as well. Like, even if they're creating the alliance to fight Tar-Baphon, it's bad news for Tree Razor that the elves are letting other people into the country and that the elves have allies. You know, he's been struggling for a long time with just the elves, and all of a sudden they've got other people they can draw on. That's a real problem for Tree Razor.
So the thing is, the Spore Network, telepathic and divine in nature, right? So here's this demon. He's got his hand on the button. He's going to himself, if I don't blow it up now, they'll come and stop me. And then nothing will blow up. So the demon mentality is, press the button now.
Yep.
And it's not ready. The Jaharlu spore. It's gonna work like a bomb, I think. Let's see. Ooh, there is one thing I forgot to mention, sir. You'll like this. This is called a Tithe Keeper.
You're right. I do like this. I don't know what I'm looking at, but
So basically, priests of Razmirin make these creatures in order to subdue villages and towns that haven't paid their tithes. And the Tithe Keeper comes in and kills a couple people, waves the corpses around, and then they kind of get more motivated to pay to the living god, you know?
yeah, that makes sense. It's a construct. Yeah, Razmir likes their constructs. I like this.
Hmm.
It's another thing that if I'd seen this AP before I made my Resmiran video, when I was talking about I think the mask golem and some of the other stuff in Resmiran, the Tidekeeper thing is really cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Iron, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. The spore is kind of a bomb. Basically what happens is it causes explosive fungal growth,
Mm-hmm.
and if left to germinate long enough, it's really bad, like cataclysm bad.
Ah, we should talk about that. Jaharlu. Jaharlu is the name of the demonic realm of Sivkaziv. That is
Yeah.
what the spore is named after. I suspect Tree Razor stole spores from Daddy.
Ah, yeah. That would make sense.
Hmm. So basically what's happened is now they have to get back to Green Gold because they know something's up. And once they see the Jaharlu spore and, things start clicking in their heads like fungus, it's like, oh, this has Tree Razor's MO written all over it. We've got to get back. They can teleport. They can do sending. They can basically do any high-level spell they have at their capacity to get back sooner or to warn people. But the fact of the matter is that Green Gold is going to suffer an attack from the Jaharlu spore. But because it's prematurely detonated, it doesn't quite do the job of destroying the entire town. The demon knows this. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll cover a chunk of it in spores and it's going to be a lot of cleanup. Very Last of Us.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up as soon as we saw the Rotwalkers. Yes. Yes. Very good. Very good. So, the demon at this point knows that Tree Razor will punish him unless he gets the job done. Because, one, not only did he screw up, he detonated before it was time. And remember what I said, that the fungus has a divine connection and is telepathic? So it is also connected to Tree Razor. He knows. He knows he screwed up. Alright, let's see here. Ah, yes, I'll show you the temple first, even though we don't go there first. So the PCs basically see it happen, no matter how they get back or when they get back. It's scripted to happen as they're overlooking it from like the beach or whatever, and they see like fungus and mushrooms spring up from the Temple of Calistria, where they were having the Incarthan Alliance just like a few days ago, and the entire thing is destroyed. All the priests, all the priestesses, everything gone. The statue of the hero that Green Gold was known for, the guy that killed Slithermaw, the demonic Hydra, that was actually taken in by the demon because he's planning to break their spirit. Which he's very socially driven for a demon because he likes destroying works of art. It's the kind of demon that he is.
Yeah.
So it feels like he's as much of an artist as he is defacing other art. He took the statue, and he put it in with the fungal heart, which is basically like 50 feet underground now. If he doesn't complete the work in 5 days, he can't trigger what the book is calling a second blossoming, but it's really just the spore continuing to grow and fester over the place. It's not really a second blossoming.
Yeah, so they get a chance to stop the spread, essentially, here in the third part of the book. Yeah. This is great, by the way. All of this is really cool. I think I love an AP that opens with some pretty drastic consequences for the players. Obviously, the Senate getting massacred in War for the Crown is a great opening.
Oh
But
yeah.
here you've got kind of a two-step thing where you've got A, the council meeting gets interrupted by assassins, and B, then the fungal bomb goes off, and the location that you start the adventure in ends up being all destroyed and messed up. And this is great fuel for the PCs to want revenge.
Ooh, good thing you brought that up. Calistria, revenge. Agathriel, revenge. Oh, very nice.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime you can get your PCs really motivated to take out the big villain, that's great. That's great storytelling.
Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing it. Oh, this is kind of the cover material and whatnot. You will get to fight these guys, the Spore Tyrannosaurus Rexes. They are sort of patrolling around the Temple of Calistria. I'm not sure what the elves were doing with T-Rexes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if do they have like a zoo somewhere?
I don't know, man.
Maybe they were hiding underground or came up through cracks. They were already infected. Who knows?
Yeah, Tree Razor just like, T-Rexes, of course.
Why are there slime demons in the sewers? Sometimes it's just villains because there are villains. Also, fungal T-Rexes are cool. So.
Oh yes.
Rule of cool. That makes sense.
Like you said, we do have the Last of Us type creatures. These are the Root Walkers.
Oh, these are great.
This is the unfortunate. Yep. This is the unfortunate fate of those elves that didn't get away. Also, there is an advanced fly trap over here. They really didn't do like a specific art towards it, but it's a fungal fly trap. Good enough. All right, so the way that this chapter plays out is that the PCs are here now, but don't forget that the delegation is still here as well. And the delegation is thankfully at an estate that was untouched by this blossoming of fungal spores and whatnot. So they've seen everything happen. The Malruthi, the Malrune people, as well as Nimrothis, everyone and their delegations are fighting and trying to help the elves stave off the corruption. They're basically in the streets, all acting together. When you get back to them, they give you all gifts, all of which are appropriate for the ORC now. We actually see the new Necklace of Fireballs, which is, I think, like frozen fire or frozen lava.
Yes, it was frozen lava.
Yeah, frozen lava. They're basically little spheres you throw for fireball. That is the new Necklace of Fireballs.
That's cool.
Oh, and we finally find out that the Ustalav delegate is definitely not a vampire, and prove it within a shadow of a doubt, because, he's out in bright sunlight.
I think some vampires can be out in sunlight.
Yeah, turns out it turns out he lets people believe that just to troll people.
You know what? That seems totally in keeping with his character. So yeah, I'm for that as well.
Now, this is what I don't agree with. What happens is, let's see. There's this strange fungus, right, growing everywhere, and you can get like low quality and high quality samples, and that limits the amount of research you can get. You're on a time limit to save this place. Lots of action-y stuff happen, and you give us a downtime activity. What's more is, It's only a 6-point research subsystem. And this is the first time that this has ever happened in an AP. You can actually pass the buck to an NPC. There just happens to be an elven gardener there that says, I'll take a look at it for you. But it takes them the full 24 hours to do it, and you can more than half that time if the players actually do it. But it really doesn't feel like this scene and what's happening in town would warrant, like, the use of this subsystem. Because basically what you're trying to find out and the information that you get from the subsystem is where these fungal nodes are, and that by destroying the 3 fungal nodes in town, that will open up the secret underground complex where Luca Rosell, the demon, is working with the fungal heart.
It does feel like it throws off the pacing a little bit.
But not entirely.
Yeah, that's one of those adjustments that I think, it'll depend on the group, right? I think for a lot of my play groups, I had to feel a lot of pressure when the bad stuff happens, and stopping to collect samples is probably not going to be their top priority, and they'll want to figure out a way inside faster. And also, this is quite a reasonably high level campaign, so they'll have. I assume so that if they use the samples to they'll find some way into confront the big bad, whether or not they get the samples, right? So I think this is one of those things you could probably discard if it wasn't worth it.
Well, that was what I was going to bring up next. You're absolutely right. You can just look for these fungal nodes, and as it turns out, you're going to be burning large sections of fungal growth anyway. So you're going to see these strange nodes. They stick out. 10 minutes of looking can find them. So you're absolutely right. You can skip it entirely. At least I would hand wave it.
Yeah.
And how much time does the research take if the PCs do it?
I think they can get it done in 4 hours if they have the high quality sample and the low quality sample. Because the low quality sample is a limit of 2, and the high quality sample is a limit of 4. So you need both, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and they're only in 2 specific rooms, despite the fact there's fungus fucking everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit too video gamey, honestly.
Gamified, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes, like I said, it always depends on your play group and the characters they have playing. I'd imagine a scenario where if I had like an alchemist in my party and he was like, I really want to put my alchemy kit to use, I'd be like, great.
Yes.
It just so happens to say he has a whole subsystem so you can use your science to solve the problem.
Yes.
But I can also do a play group where you can just move on.
Yes, and then the elves can look at you all cockeyed going like, what are you doing? Why aren't you using magic? Is this magic? Why is the magic in vials?
Exactly. That's the way we do it in Alpenstar.
Yep. While all this is going on, the queen's cousin is complete proxy for the queen. She's looking through everything, like very desperate, trying to see what's going on. She sees that the heroes are here. She gets a little bit comforted, but at the same time she's going like, we don't have much time. How much time do we have? You should probably hurry. Like, you can't tell the players you only have 5 days.
Yeah.
All right, so they get the 3 fungal nodes. They reveal the fungal sanctum with the fungal heart. Yeah. And you finally meet Luca Rosell, who, as it turns out, is a very low-level demon that's surprisingly high. He's the one that's got the mirror vulnerability. Let's see. Where are you, Lucrezel? I have to zoom in. Here he is. Very much in the spirit of Tree Raiser. Mushrooms everywhere.
Yeah. What's he holding there? What's the silver fly thing?
It looks like he's either corrupting a fly or disintegrating a fly in his hand.
Oh, okay. That's not like a special thing in the game that uses.
Not that I can see, no. Or a spell. Oh! Cursed Metamorphosis. He can transform a creature into a harmless, fungus-infested animal. That might be it.
That's probably what it is. Yes, he's turning a PC into a little fly.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, by the way. Doing that to a PC.
Oh God, I just had flashbacks of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh, that's right. That's
I'm
right.
sounding like a really evil DM, but yes, if you can do body horror stuff to your PCs, you should totally do it.
So this is Lucrezel's one chance. If he doesn't do this, Tree Raiser's plans will ultimately be exposed, because this isn't the only Jaharlu spore. There are Jaharlu spores all over Kyonin, and they don't know. Which is kind of weird. I mean, they're under the ground. He planted them under the ground without them knowing about it, but they all travel through the Darklands. I mean, at some point, someone would have noticed over the centuries, but they didn't.
Depends on, I guess, how recent this operation of his was, and I don't know that the elves necessarily spend that much time in the Darklands. It's a good setup for, oh no, it's an emergency. We need all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
We need the Carbon Alliance.
EA.
How are we going to deal with this, right?
I just hope the Queen doesn't leave EA at an inopportune moment. That would be awful. Alright, so, once Lucrezel is felled, it's pretty much determined that this is the beginning of the full-on conflict with Tree Raiser. There's no more Cold War tactics going on. The elves basically can't just observe him anymore. It has to be a full-on fight, because these Jaharlu spores are everywhere. And this isn't the only place that they could potentially detonate, or are detonating now. Tree Raiser knows that his hand has been shown early. Maybe he's detonating them somewhere, maybe he isn't. That's something that we're going to see more of in Book 2. And potentially, where the story is going is kind of how things wrap up. Because once everything is cleaned up, like you said, there's a lot of cleanup to do. The fungus basically rots away without the spore, and everyone's on cleanup duty for a couple days. There is actually a vault of Calistria that the elves unearth and gift the heroes with 2 unique items. I believe these items and others are the legendary items that will eventually be powered up at the end of the campaign by the Elven Pantheon.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
One is the Beacon of Castravel. Yeah, Castravel's Beacon. Let me see if I can get that up for you.
Astrovel, once again being the planet the elves are originally from.
Mm-hmm. It has a little orrery on it. It is a rapier. The other one is Morning Glow, which doesn't have art, unfortunately. That one is another holy item. Standard Cold Iron Elven Curve Blade, which I believe I looked up
very cool.
earlier.
Yeah, curved blades are like the elven samurai sword. Traditional elven weapon, commonly used two-handed. It's a it's got some cool features in both 1E and 2E. I think in 2E it's got the is it the finesse property, so you can do iterative attacks more easily. And then in 1E it was I think it's the only two-handed weapon that you can finesse wield and get your dex bonus.
Yep, finesse and forceful.
Yes. Actually, in 2E, it's got a really compelling combination of features. If you play, uh, I think it like a monk has the ancestral weapons. Sorry, it's been a minute since I played 2E. I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. That's quite all right.
Then you can like flurry with the curve blade. So if you
Yeah.
there's an elven monk build out there that's pretty potent, I think.
Well, don't forget, we still have the staff Fiend Breaker that was in the player's handbook that they kind of teased at with the backgrounds and everything. I believe that is another of the legendary weapons that we'll get to see.
It's cool. I'm a sucker for really cool magic items that you get early on and stay with you for pretty much the entire adventure.
Yeah, that I really do like the relics in War of the Crown. I wish we could see more of them, or see them in more of a generic sense. I tried to get my players in Strength of Thousands to make relic weapons. I think Iron was the only one that did.
And I have absolutely used it. It has saved my character's life, literally.
Yes.
Another thing that I liked that they included towards the end of this is I think this is new. They added a trait for consumable items.
Yes.
So basically, the catalyst trait is something that is put on consumable items that modifies a spell when they're cast. I feel like that has a lot of potential down the road for spellcasters who don't necessarily have a whole lot of spellcasting options, or even if they do, if you are the kind of spellcaster that has like specific go-tos, there's a potential where you could create really neat items that could like do extra things with the spell.
Didn't we see that in Howl of the Wild and Wardens of Wildwood with those little whistles that druids could blow that would give them access to 4th rank or lower spells while in wild shape? We've seen a couple of things like that.
Yes, but like as I was looking at it, I thought of ways that this could be used, and I actually thought of something specific to something that I was working on a while ago. The idea of like, let's say, a an a, a catalyst that is used specifically for mirror image, where if your mirror image is shattered, it can cause mental damage to the offending creature.
Ooh, and that's really good against demons, just like spirit damage. Because every time they suffer a vulnerability, it's going to be mental damage, so they don't have resistance to that.
Sort of like playing into the whole thing about illusions and phantasms, and is it real or is it not? Maybe it's both.
Yes. Oh, and while we're on mechanics for a short while, Bramble highly recommends you play an Elf Exemplar with Demon Hunter, Demon Hunted, all the demon killing stuff to get that sweet, juicy spirit damage that just keeps stacking and stacking. It's really good, and it goes up every few levels.
I really did like the Elven Exemplar stuff that they added and all the ancestry traits that went with it.
Yep. So, I'm kind of proud. The Queen, Talendia, excuse me, she actually does name them heroes. And she's overjoyed to have them. Hercules reminds me that the Mwangi elves famous for their demon hunting. I do remember that.
Yes, that's true. That is there's just another cool like character thread. If someone wanted to play an Alaj elf, there's a bunch of cool lore tie-ins right now with Keonin. Alaj elves, obviously they live in the White City of Nagisa. That was a demon haunted city. They are expert at demon hunting, but right now the sort of queen consort is an Alaj elf. So over the course of first edition, Queen Talandia went out there and she, I think, intentionally went out looking for a non-Iudine elf for a consort, and then potentially
Yeah.
to make king of them, to build bridges between the different disparate elven communities. And so her fiance right now is an Alaj elf, and I think her thing is birds. I think she's got like a pet hawk. His thing is
Yes.
cats. He's got like a pet panther. But like you could imagine that there would be an Alaj delegation that would be supporting him. So
Yes.
if you're keen on playing an Alaj elf, this would be a great campaign to do that.
Yeah. Representing the king or the prince's influence or whatnot. Yeah. I saw him in Legends, I think. There's a picture of him in Legends right by her.
There is, yeah. He is in art. I think in some of my earlier videos, I misread some lore stuff, right? And I accidentally thought that it was a lady and not a guy, and so I've got some erroneous stuff in one of my videos. I don't know where, but no, there is official art for him, and it is a male character. But yeah, I think that's a cool development for Talandia and for the Elzakian.
No problem. I really do like that they're fitting more elven cultures together. I do wish they would do that with the cavern elves as well, because it feels like I really want to see cavern elves in books 2 or 3. And we've mentioned the Darklands. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for that as well. Yeah, I would love to see that.
All right.
I mean, we got Darklands orcs in Triumph of the Tusk a little bit, so why not?
Yes. What color
Also,
are their eyes?
I do not remember. Red, I think?
Yes.
yes, I would love to see more Darklands orcs. I think when I was working on my Darklands video and I was reviewing the old 1E Darklands content, it's really a huge miss that all orcs originate from the Darklands, but there are no major orc settlements discussed. No major sort of orc civilizations. But you'd imagine that there'd still be a bunch of orcs in the Darklands. So hopefully, if we get some additional Darklands content for remaster, we get some cool Darklands orc content and some cool Cavern Elf content as well.
Well, after Triumph of the Tusk, it's pretty well established that there is at least one major hold that is mostly Darklands orcs.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to make sure I read through that and figure out. So it's like a named city that they've got that appears in Triumph of the Tusk.
I think it's Blisterwell.
Yep, Blisterwell and the Haskadar orcs.
Yes.
Yes, actually, I do. I am aware of that. Actually, that Blisterwell is actually referenced in my Boxing video. So that actually existed in 1E as well.
Which, by the way, was incredibly helpful. Regnat the Green was one of my favorites of that. It was kind of sad that after watching your video, I saw them, like in that adventure path, spoilers for anyone who hasn't done Triumph of the Tusks, they get, Iron, what was the word again? Resource management?
Oh, no. Yes.
Oh.
Forget the...
They get
they're
restructured, yes.
Oh, boy. So,
Well, this is a really cool start for an AP. That's
yes.
my big takeaway. I think it's got some suitable big moments that you can play in a really big way. The attack on the council at the beginning. I love politics, so I love councils. And also the big rod explosion. So you come back to the same location, but it's all covered in fungal growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. Good opening.
How about you, Iron? Your thoughts?
I definitely enjoyed this one. I feel like Paizo in general tends to have really strong book ones most of the time.
Yes.
This has been better than like a lot of them. I actually think this might be. I mean, Triumph of the Tusk was good, but I actually think this one was better than that for book ones.
You think they're gonna keep it going through book 2 and 3?
They better.
No. What kind of response is that?
An honest response.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, I do mention this in every prep session, now recap session, that there are mistakes in this module, one of which is a very, very minor mistake. Alzarius, during the delegation, announces himself to be the 12th step mask of Razmir. His back matter entry is 13th step mask of Razmir, both of which do wear the silver mask, but it's odd that he would introduce himself as a mask of the 12th step when he's actually a mask of the 13th step, as is his fellow the Rotting God, Velzatrex. Another thing... Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say there was another thing that confused me too.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of the investigation in, I believe it was chapter 2 after the assassination attempt, they do mention like methods that you could use outside the autopsy magically to try and figure out what the hell is happening. They reference divination spells,
Mm-hmm.
which don't exist in the remaster.
Oh, no.
Interesting.
They did such a good job with the items. Why did they do that with the spells?
And I kind of looked at it and I was like, wait, didn't they do away with spell schools because of the whole remaster thing? And then I checked, like, things like, I forget what the new name of Speak with Dead is, but that is, or spells like Locate. They're detection now. They're not detection and divination.
Right.
So what I think should have probably happened is that it should have been like detection and scrying, because those are two different tags.
Mm-hmm. Talking Corpse, Divine Occult. That is...
But yeah, it's that thing where like we know what a divination spell is.
Yes.
But
metagaming.
System-wise, yes. Metagaming-wise, we know what it is. But system-wise, that doesn't exist. So, if you've only ever played Pathfinder 2nd Edition, if you're new, that can be very confusing.
That's okay. To the Rune Lords, divination didn't exist either. Another thing that I found odd, particularly with the investigation, the letter that describes the assassination is detailed in its effect on Alzarius before it is known to exist. That is a little confusing. It's just a matter of placement and finding it in the next couple of scenes. And when it is found in the next couple of scenes, it is not mentioned to be that letter exactly, merely a piece of parchment that had fallen behind the altar. There's just a little bit missing from the description there that could have really helped. Like, if I didn't know what I was looking for and that it was that, I wouldn't know what that parchment was, because 1, there's not an item for it, and 2, there's no description attached to that particular parchment. But I'm pretty sure the parchment that fell behind the altar is the assassination instructions.
Yeah, that sounds like that would make sense.
So I'm not being down on the module. I think very positively of it so far, but there are errors. There are pain points. Particularly with Alzarius, if you don't work with him. I, for one, would work with him. I really like his character. Something that strikes me, the final minor gripe that I'm going to mention. We've mentioned that the fungus has the divine and telepathic trait. Tree Razor knows about all the Jaharlu spores, Jaharlu spores in his network, and he knows that Lucazariel is controlling this one. Usually when someone has, like divine authority or divine power, they can override one of their minions if they sense something is going to happen, and telepathically he would be able to sense that this spore is about to detonate. I'm of the mind Tree Razor let it happen. He could have stopped it if he wanted to. That's my feelings on it.
Yeah, I think you can. That's one of those nuanced details that you could go either way on, and it sort of will depend on the way that the story is playing out. I think if ultimately the PCs confront Tree Razor, and and it advantages the story to have Tree Razor be aware of it, then make use of that. And then if for whatever reason it advantages the story for Tree Razor for actually that was an incompetent minion and Tree Razor didn't want him to do it, you can do that as well. You know what I mean? Like, or you leave it ambiguous because the players will never know anyway.
Right.
But stuff like that, I often like. I feel like as a GM, I often sometimes intentionally don't make choices because events in the story will unfold in ways that I don't expect.
Yes.
And then later I'll be forced to make a choice and I'll do it in the moment.
And just off the top of my head, I can think of why Tree Razor might have just let this happen.
Go ahead.
Because he's watching this, more
Yes.
or less, and he's like, wow, you really screwed up. However, if you can pull this off, that means I don't need to wait for all of them.
Oh.
So let's see how this plays out.
Good point. I wish they had mentioned that in the story. That's something really good to infer. Good job, Iron.
Yeah, I agree. That's great.
See, this is... Iron really earns his keep. He really does. Oh, something else you brought up, Iron? You should probably say it now. In defense of your players, when something cartoonishly evil happens, you go from 0 to 10 in Pathfinder, and there's like no chance to react when bad things happen. Like when they get really attached to people. Remember that conversation?
Vaguely, but I've also slept several times since then.
So basically, in Pathfinder, something cartoonishly evil happens with wanton destruction we can do nothing about. This is one of those instances.
Yep.
Players...
Yep.
Okay, I do remember that conversation now, yes.
Players are bound to react to this in some way. Because they've got to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vigil gets destroyed. The fungal bomb goes off. The Senate all gets assassinated in War for the Crown. Pathfinder loves their big like horrifying moments to kick off a campaign. Um, and yeah, you wanna give the players some room to react to those events.
Yeah, but the Senate can just get reelected, right? We can just get more senators.
Of course, totally disposable.
Another thing that has come up is on the forums and also in the player's hand guide, I believe it is, or the module itself. We are told to temper our expectations. What are your gentlemen's feelings on that? Particularly when it comes to the use of subsystems and starting the story off a bit slower this time, rather than getting right to the action of the Spore War. The end of Book 1 is the beginning of Spore War, not the beginning of Book 1.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I mentioned this to you over Discord that I was always a big lover of the old 6 volume APs that are
Mm-hmm.
more of a slow burn
Yeah.
because I like to. In fact, I think that there's probably a way that you could do that here, where because I think this starts at 11th level, you could
Yes.
probably find a way to do adventures in green gold for 10 levels, and then go into Spore War. Um, and the reason that I
Oh.
like a slow burn, right?
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
totally do that. I love a slow burn because I feel like that the early days is a lot of the when the pressure's not on. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the best character stuff that you get. By midway through an adventure, like there's a big demon that's going to destroy everything, or the somebody's going to summon a second starstone, or whatever. Some enormous cataclysmic event
Yeah.
is so important that the players have to be on all the time, and there's this constant pressure to go to the next adventure and to solve the next problem. And so the early days of the adventure, when you're like having council meetings or a tea party, that's some of the best stuff. And
Yeah.
so I don't mind if you get a little bit more time up front to do some role playing, you know.
Very good. Very good. How about you, Aryan?
Um, I kind of agree with most of that because I feel like for like the context of book ones in general, it kind of sets the stage for things. So when we talk about tempering expectations, I feel like
Uh-oh.
G should be doing.
Roboting, sir. Roboting.
Oh, is that better?
Better.
All right. So what was I saying? Right. So I feel like when it comes to tempering expectations, DMs should be doing that anyway with their players. Um, so the question really becomes, does the AP give you the tools to craft the expectations of your players according to the needs of the table?
Mhm.
Sometimes that answer is yes, like in Triumph of the Tusk or here in Spore War. Sometimes the answer is no, like Curtain Call.
Curtain call.
Because Curtain Call was one where the book one was really good, but it felt so disparate from the rest of the AP that it's just like, okay, this is not what I expected, but not necessarily in a good way.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have 5 minutes left. I'm gonna see if I can squeeze one more question out of Mythkeeper. Can you tell us a little bit about the Elven Mage Elthian and how he weakened Tree Razor?
Uh, so let me see if I. Wow, you put me on the spot. No, so Elthian, if I remember correctly, uh, he he's basically an immortal elf wizard.
Mm-hmm.
He remained behind during the Elven Exodus. I'm not entirely certain how he protected his home, but he had a cool home at some point.
Yes.
And he had a cool home at some point. It appears on the official Keonan map. And then when Tree Razor discovered Ayadara and started to besiege it to acquire the Severian Stone, he emerged from his kind of sort of self-imposed exile and got involved in the fight. This is another one of those places where I think the details, unless I'm missing some source material, are not totally clear. I don't actually
Mhm.
know what he did, but he was instrumental in turning the tide. And I wonder if maybe a Spore War will reveal. Also, he himself disappeared. That's another one
Yes.
of those like
Yes.
unsolved mysteries. What happened to Elthian?
Oh, we're gonna
Um,
solve that.
anyway. Oh, we are going to solve that. Is
Yep.
that known
It
in the
is.
details around the AP? That's
Yep.
so cool. Okay, so yeah, that's really about as much as I know. Is that he got involved in the fight the first time. He did some cool magicy stuff to kind of hold Tree Razor back, and then something went slightly wrong. He disappeared. Um, there's like some kind of weird like haunting in his place. I think there's like a almost like a mini black hole
Yeah.
that exists somewhere
Dim
in his
crater.
palace. Yes, and yeah, that's about as much as I know about Althea.
That's what we got to go on. Very good, sir. I must say, I'm impressed. Also, Hercule says, "Blessings of the Forest" is the name.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Hopefully, I'll have a like I said, I'll have a Keonan video out in the not too distant future, so folks can refer to that as they go through their Spore War. I would love it if the timing was such that it came out around the same time as the final book of Spore War, but we'll see if that lines up.
Mm-hmm. Hercules goes on to say the Pathfinder Society is approached by the Queen of Keonan for their assistance in investigating a demon obsessed elf noble and his ominous plans for an isolated town within the forest of Keonan in exchange for allowing the society to once again operate within the nation. So there's no Pathfinder Lodge in Keonan.
No, yes, that's correct. There is no Pathfinder Lodge in Keonan.
Oh, wow.
The Keonan for most of the first edition timeline was pretty unwelcoming to non-elves.
Mm-hmm.
There's a gnome city. They welcome half elves and forlorn elves and other types of elves, uh, and they welcome non-elves, but exclusively in the city of Greengold. So
Mm-hmm.
Greengold has always been their like this is the port where you deal with Keonan. But if you want to go into the forest and meet the other elves, you need like a special visitor's badge. You know,
Ah,
it
yes.
basically says you're authorized. But if you're a foreigner, you can't just wander into Keonan. They'll arrest you for trespassing.
Mm. That was one of my questions that I was going to originally ask. Thank you for answering that. I thought that was only going to happen in like Xur and stuff like that. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today and offering so much insight. And I'm glad that I too got to show you something new. I mean, like it's really fun to use Foundry, and it takes some of the hassle away from the normal physical tabletop. So I'm glad you enjoyed spending a little time and looking at it.
I did. This was super fun. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad I did this. I definitely want to do more different kinds of content this year. And so this was kind of a fun experiment and something a little bit different for me.
Good, good, good. Iron, how'd you feel about it? He did. Oh, nope.
Nope, nope. I'm good. Sorry.
That's okay.
Um, um, I really enjoyed having you. Um, I was freaking out a little bit at the
Don't freak out.
beginning because, well, I mean, not because
El-
of the audio issues. That was a different thing. No.
Elves are
Um,
your friends.
they are your friends, not food.
Yes.
Unless you're tree raiser. Then
Mm.
that's different.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you gentlemen. I am sorry that Podfinder was not able to join us this time. I'll make sure that he's here for next time. Whether or not either of you would like to come in to the next Second Friday of next month is up to you. I will leave it up in the air for anyone who wishes to join, and it's always an open invitation to DMs that would like to help prepare this adventure or recap it with the audience. I'm glad we were able to give our time towards this today, and thank you once again, both of you.
Awesome, anytime. And also, just before we wrap up here, I just want to let you know I will I'll promote this video on my channel as well.
Oh, thank you,
so
sir.
thanks once again for setting this up.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Alrighty, guys, I release you back into the forest with the elves.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.